Something ancient is still moving beneath the surface of our world, not in motion, but in meaning. Across deserts, jungles, and forgotten coastlines stand structures so precise, so impossibly engineered, that even today's science struggles to explain how they came to be. They rise from the earth like messages left for a future that has barely begun to understand them. Stones cut with microscopic accuracy, monuments aligned with celestial events no naked eye could predict, and ruins built with techniques we can't fully replicate. Were these feats the work of knowledge long lost, or of civilizations far more advanced than history dares to admit? Tonight, we step beyond the comfort of what we think we know. We'll uncover the enigmas carved into ancient walls, scattered across continents yet united by the same haunting question. How were they built? So, take a breath, steady your imagination, and let's begin our descent into the world of ancient structures science still can't explain. Rising gently from the rolling plains of central Anatolia, the remains of Çatalhöyük spread like an ancient tapestry stitched into the earth itself. From above, the settlement appears almost like a labyrinth of honey-colored bricks, densely packed and uniform, rooftops touching as if the town were designed to breathe as one living organism. Narrow alleyways wind between structures that seem more organic than architectural, and yet, even in ruin, they convey a sense of deliberate intention, a vision of communal life frozen in time, dating back over 9,000 years. Archaeologists have long marveled at Çatalhöyük's unique design. Here, there are no streets, no formal entrances, no conventional pathways. Houses are accessed through holes in the roof, ladders descending into dimly lit rooms, their interiors decorated with murals, reliefs, and plastered walls painted in deep ochres and earthy reds. Scenes of animals, hunting, and geometric motifs seem to pulse with symbolic meaning, hinting at rituals, beliefs, or ideas we can only begin to imagine. How did such a densely populated society function without the streets and roads that civilizations elsewhere relied upon? And what drove their intricate artistry, so rich in imagination and yet so cryptic in purpose? Some suggest practical reasons: rooftops as communal spaces, fire prevention, or defense against invaders. Yet there is an undeniable aura to the settlement, an energy that feels deliberate, intentional, even sacred. Could Çatalhöyük have been more than just a village? Perhaps a hub for early spiritual practice, or a place designed to mirror the cosmic order as understood by its inhabitants? The alignment of certain buildings and shrines with the rising sun and seasonal cycles has led some researchers to speculate on an astronomical dimension, though evidence remains fragmentary and interpretations vary. Within the homes, archaeologists have uncovered layers of plaster, floors meticulously maintained, and traces of daily life preserved like a diary written in mud and pigment. Tools, pottery, and animal remains suggest a community thriving on trade, agriculture, and domestication. Yet there is a mystery that lingers over the sheer scale and ambition of the settlement. How did such a large population organize itself socially and politically in a time before formal governments or codified law? And why, after centuries of occupation, was the settlement abandoned without clear evidence of disaster, disease, or conquest? Even more puzzling are the symbolic carvings and enigmatic figurines scattered throughout Çatalhöyük. Vivid depictions of leopards, vultures, and horned animals appear repeatedly in niches and murals, yet their meaning remains opaque. Some scholars propose they represent totemic or religious imagery, while others suggest they might encode knowledge of the natural world, astronomical cycles, or even hidden aspects of the human psyche. Could these artifacts point to a sophisticated belief system lost to time, a philosophy or worldview that shaped every brick, mural, and threshold? As one walks through the ruins today, It is easy to sense the echoes of the people who lived here, their footsteps absorbed into the earth, their lives recorded only in the subtle traces they left behind. Every corner, every wall, every rooftop seems to whisper questions rather than answers, inviting observers to consider what life in Çatalhöyük truly meant. Were these people merely early farmers, or pioneers of thought and architecture whose ambitions exceeded what we can easily comprehend? And as we trace our fingers over the remnants of walls and peer into the shadowed interiors, one cannot help but wonder, what other truths lie hidden beneath the surface, buried under centuries of soil and silence, waiting for us to uncover, understand, or perhaps simply acknowledge? Çatalhöyük remains a place suspended between what we know and what we can only imagine, a living puzzle carved from clay and human intent, its secrets, for now, stubbornly elusive. From the windswept plains of northern Peru, near the modern city of Chiclayo, the Túcume pyramids rise abruptly from the flat, arid landscape, like silent sentinels of a civilization long vanished. Constructed from sun-baked adobe bricks, these massive stepped structures cluster together in an intricate pattern that stretches over 6 square kilometers, forming what is sometimes called the Valley of the Pyramids. Viewed from above, the site resembles a sprawling geometric labyrinth, an architectural tapestry that hints at order, purpose, and intent far beyond the casual eye. Archaeologists have traced the site back to the Lambayeque and earlier Sican cultures, flourishing over a millennium ago. The largest pyramid, rising nearly 40 meters, dominates the horizon, its terraces suggesting both ceremonial and administrative significance. Evidence points to a vibrant society. Ceramics, textiles, and metalwork speak of skilled artisans and a thriving economy, while tombs and ritual objects hint at complex spiritual practices. Yet even as we catalog these finds, the sheer scale of the site raises questions that remain unresolved. How did these people construct such massive edifices with only rudimentary tools? How did they organize labor and logistics to erect dozens of pyramids across the harsh desert plains? The pyramids themselves seem to defy easy explanation. Unlike the precisely aligned stone constructions found in Egypt or Mesoamerica, Túcume's adobe pyramids appear irregular at first glance. Yet some researchers argue there is hidden symmetry, alignments that may correlate with solstices, the cycles of the moon, or even particular stars. Could these massive mounds have served as observatories, spiritual focal points, or markers of a lost cosmological knowledge? And if so, what prompted the selection of this very valley as the canvas for such monumental work? Adding to the intrigue are the tombs buried within the pyramids. Many contain elaborate burial goods, gold ornaments, ceremonial knives, textiles dyed in vivid pigments, and skeletal remains sometimes arranged in unusual postures. The richness and scale of these burials suggest a society that placed extraordinary emphasis on death and the afterlife. But the precise beliefs, the rituals performed here, remain tantalizingly obscure. Were these sites designed merely to honor rulers and elites, or do they hold a deeper, perhaps astronomical or symbolic significance yet to be deciphered? The adobe itself presents another puzzle. Though fragile and susceptible to erosion, many of Túcume's structures have survived for centuries, testament to both the skill of their builders and the deliberate techniques employed in their construction. Some mounds show evidence of successive rebuilding, layers upon layers suggesting long-term planning, adaptation, and perhaps even a symbolic connection between past and present. What messages, if any, were the builders attempting to convey through these repeated acts of reconstruction? As the sun sets across the valley, casting long shadows over terraces and platforms, the pyramids take on an almost ethereal quality. Their contours ripple with history, memory, and mystery, as if the earth itself were holding its breath, guarding secrets that no text or artifact can fully reveal. Walking among them, one senses a rhythm, a pulse of human endeavor intertwined with cosmic forces, yet just beyond our comprehension. And so we are left to wonder, what knowledge has been lost to time, buried beneath adobe bricks and sand? Did these pyramids serve purposes we can only speculate upon, ceremonial, astronomical, social, or something even more profound, now beyond the reach of modern understanding? Túcume, like Çatalhöyük before it, reminds us that the past is rarely silent, but it does not always speak in words we can understand. Its mysteries endure, inviting us to look, to question, and to imagine what truths might still lie hidden in the Peruvian desert. As the journey from Peru to North America unfolds, we shift northward, tracing the echoes of ancient ambition to the rolling landscapes of the southeastern United States. In the heart of Alabama, beside the winding Black Warrior River, lie the Moundville Earthworks, an expansive complex of earthen mounds that stretch over a vast floodplain, their silhouettes rising from the forested landscape like whispers from a distant past. Viewed from a distance, the mounds appear deceptively simple, broad terraces of soil, gently sloping and meticulously sculpted, yet closer observation reveals a deliberate order and scale that defies easy explanation. Moundville was occupied from roughly 1000 to 1450 CE by the Mississippian culture, a civilization renowned for its social complexity, intricate artistry, and monumental earthworks. At its height, Moundville comprised nearly 30 large mounds arranged around a central plaza, encircled by a wooden palisade that suggested both protection and a defined civic order. The largest mound, known as Mound A, rises over 10 meters above the surrounding plain, commanding the landscape with a quiet authority. Its precise orientation and relationship to the other mounds hint at intentional planning, raising questions about the knowledge and purpose behind such urban design in a pre-Columbian North America that modern observers often underestimate. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence that Moundville was not merely a residential center, but a hub of ritual, governance, and trade. Artifacts of remarkable craftsmanship, including finely etched pottery, copper ornaments, shell gorgets, and ceremonial figurines, suggest a society deeply invested in symbolism and ceremony. Yet, despite extensive study, many mysteries remain. How were these mounds constructed with such precision, using only rudimentary tools? The labor required to move the immense quantities of soil is staggering, implying a highly organized society capable of mobilizing hundreds, perhaps thousands, of workers over decades. What social or spiritual impetus drove this effort? And what knowledge guided the planners to create a layout that seems to balance utility, symbolism, and perhaps even celestial alignment? One of the most compelling enigmas of Moundville is the apparent integration of astronomy and ritual. Some researchers have noted alignments between certain mounds and the cardinal points, while others speculate that structures may have been oriented to mark solstices, lunar cycles, or significant seasonal changes. Could Moundville have served as a kind of observatory, a calendar of stone and soil designed to guide agricultural practices, ceremonial events, or even cosmological understanding? Or was the layout purely a reflection of social hierarchy and ritual importance, a tangible map of power and prestige within the Mississippian world? The central plaza itself offers further intrigue. Archaeologists believe it was a space of communal gathering, ceremonies, and political discourse. Surrounding it, the largest mounds were likely reserved for elite residences, temples, or council structures, while smaller mounds may have served funerary or ritual functions. Yet, unlike other Mississippian sites, Moundville exhibits a remarkable uniformity in mound design, suggesting a cohesive vision for the entire complex. What guiding principles dictated this arrangement? And how did the builders communicate such a sophisticated plan without written records, leaving only the silent earth to testify to their intent. Burials and artifacts add layers of mystery. Many mounds contain graves adorned with ceremonial items, yet some interments appear deliberately stripped of their belongings or arranged in ways that defy conventional interpretation. Certain artifacts, like intricately carved stone pipes, exotic shells, and finely crafted effigies, hint at long-distance trade and cultural exchange, yet their symbolic significance remains elusive. Did these objects encode religious meaning, social status, or astronomical knowledge? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been lost to time, leaving only tantalizing fragments behind? The sheer scale and sophistication of Moundville continue to challenge conventional narratives about pre-Columbian North America. The labor, planning, and social organization required to construct such a city suggest a level of engineering, coordination, and cultural cohesion that still surprises modern observers. Some scholars have suggested that the site reflects a society harmonizing civic, spiritual, and astronomical concerns, while others hint at the possibility of ritual or symbolic knowledge encoded in the very layout of the mounds, a language written in earth itself. Walking the grounds today, the mounds rise gently against the horizon, their contours softened by centuries of weather and vegetation, yet their presence remains commanding. There is a palpable rhythm to the site, a quiet pulse of human endeavor intertwined with the cycles of the river and the movements of the sun. As light shifts across terraces and slopes, shadows lengthen in ways that seem almost intentional, hinting at patterns and purposes just beyond our full comprehension. And yet, Moundville also speaks to what is missing. The voices, the ceremonies, the rituals, and the reasoning that once imbued this landscape with meaning. We can speculate, interpret, and map alignments, but the essence of why and how remains partially hidden, stubbornly resisting modern understanding. What drove this society to raise earth in such monumental forms? Were the mounds purely functional, purely symbolic, or something more? An intricate blend of spiritual, astronomical, and societal intent, now lost to the centuries? Moundville reminds us that human ambition is not bound by technology alone. Even with only basic tools, early cultures could shape landscapes, encode knowledge, and express beliefs in ways that resonate millennia later. And as we trace the contours of each mound, pause at the edges of the plazas, and examine the artifacts that survived, we are left to confront the same question that echoes across every ancient structure we explore. What remains hidden, waiting for those who look closely enough to see, to imagine, and perhaps to understand? As we leave the forests and plains of North America behind, our journey returns to the highlands of Peru, where the sacred valley stretches like a corridor between steep Andean peaks. Here, nestled against terraced mountainsides, lies Ollantaytambo, a living town that conceals one of the most enigmatic achievements of the Inca Empire: the monumental walls that rise with astonishing precision from the valley floor. These walls, formed from immense stone blocks, curve and ascend along natural terraces, creating a fortress that seems as much a part of the mountain as the earth itself. From a distance, the structures appear almost organic, blending seamlessly with the terrain, yet closer inspection reveals a staggering degree of craftsmanship and a mystery that continues to captivate historians, engineers, and travelers alike. Ollantaytambo was both a strategic stronghold and a ceremonial center, a place where the Incas resisted invaders and celebrated their mastery over nature and architecture. The stones used to construct the walls are immense, some weighing over 70 tons, and yet they fit together with astonishing precision. The seams between them are so tight that even a single sheet of paper cannot be inserted. How did the builders achieve such exacting alignment without modern tools, cranes, or written schematics? The question grows even more pressing when one considers the irregular shapes of many stones, carefully carved to interlock like pieces of a puzzle. Was this method purely structural, a way to strengthen the walls against earthquakes, or could there have been a deeper, perhaps symbolic, reasoning behind these choices? Historians generally agree that the stones were quarried from nearby hillsides, yet the techniques for transporting and positioning these massive blocks remain elusive. Some suggest rolling logs, sledges, or levers, yet such explanations often seem insufficient given the sheer size and weight of the stones. Could the Incas have developed engineering knowledge lost to time, methods passed down through generations and now forgotten? Or is it possible that the alignment of the stones and terraces reflects not only practical skill but also a sophisticated understanding of geometry and astronomy? The walls themselves invite contemplation. Many of the stones bear subtle curves and angles that seem deliberately chosen to create a visual harmony with the surrounding mountains. Certain terraces and niches align with the rising sun during solstices, hinting at ritual significance. Could these constructions have been designed to mark astronomical events, to channel the flow of water and energy, or to create spaces imbued with sacred meaning? And if so, how deeply did these practical and spiritual considerations intertwine in the minds of the builders? Equally compelling are the smaller, seemingly inconspicuous details. Carvings on individual stones, the placement of niches and doors, and the integration of natural rock formations into the walls all suggest a deliberate attention to both form and function. The layout of Ollantaytambo hints at a culture capable of conceiving in 3 dimensions, of imagining the final structure before the first stone was moved. How did they plan such a feat without written plans or modern surveying tools? And what can these choices tell us about Inca cosmology, their perception of space, or their understanding of the landscape as a canvas for human endeavor? Even the town below the walls speaks to an extraordinary integration of architecture, agriculture, and social organization. The terraced fields climb the slopes above, reflecting sophisticated knowledge of irrigation, erosion control, and microclimates. Water channels wind their way through the town, some still functioning today, demonstrating an engineering mastery that complemented the grandeur of the stone walls. The combination of practical infrastructure, ceremonial purpose, and defensive strength paints a picture of a society capable of remarkable feats. But it also deepens the mystery. Were the walls primarily a military fortification, or did they serve multiple overlapping purposes, blending defense, ritual, and symbolic power into a single, cohesive whole? As sunlight shifts across the valley, shadows creep along the surfaces of the walls, accentuating their curves and angles, and drawing attention to the subtle nuances of stone placement. The effect is hypnotic, a silent dialogue between human ambition and natural form. Walking among these stones today, one cannot help but feel the presence of countless hands, generations of labor, and minds attuned to both practicality and artistry. Yet the questions remain. How did they move such colossal blocks with such precision? What knowledge guided their hands and eyes, and what messages, intended or otherwise, might the walls convey to those who walk among them today? Ollantaytambo, like the other ancient structures we have explored, embodies a duality of the tangible and the mysterious. It is at once a fortress, a ceremonial space, and an enduring testament to human ingenuity. Yet it also challenges our assumptions about what ancient societies could achieve. Did the Incas discover techniques now lost to history, or did they draw upon knowledge that had been accumulated over centuries and passed down through generations in ways we may never fully understand? As we trace the curves of the walls, study the terraces, and consider the alignment of stones with mountains and sky, we are left to confront a profound truth. Ollantaytambo is more than architecture. It is a question written in stone. What wisdom remains hidden within its walls, waiting for those who approach with curiosity, patience, and wonder? The answers may remain elusive, but the mystery itself endures, inviting us to ponder, imagine, and explore the extraordinary achievements of a civilization that continues to captivate the modern mind. From the highlands and valleys of Peru, our journey takes us thousands of kilometers across the Pacific Ocean to one of the most isolated inhabited islands on Earth, Rapa Nui, or Easter Island. Here, atop the windswept coastline, stands Ahu Vinapu, a ceremonial platform that quietly defies explanation. Unlike the towering moai statues that dominate much of the island, Ahu Vinapu draws attention not through sheer height, but through the astonishing precision of its stonework. Its massive basalt stones, fitted together with such exacting skill that the seams are nearly invisible, cling to one another as if shaped to interlock by forces beyond human capability. Even today, with advanced tools and modern engineering knowledge, replicating this craftsmanship remains a formidable challenge. Archaeologists attribute Ahu Vinapu to the Rapa Nui culture, flourishing between the 13th and 16th centuries. The platform is part of a complex network of ceremonial sites, reflecting the social, political, and religious life of the islanders. Yet, it is the construction itself that captivates the imagination. Each stone is carved to fit perfectly with its neighbors, forming a wall so smooth and tight that no mortar is needed. Some blocks weigh several tons, and their arrangement suggests a knowledge of geometry and balance that seems surprisingly advanced for a society isolated from mainland civilizations. How did they achieve such precision without metal tools or large-scale machinery? And why does this technique appear markedly different from other stonework on the island? Scholars have noted that Ahu Vinapu's construction bears an uncanny resemblance to the polygonal stonework found in distant places, such as the walls of Ollantaytambo in Peru. Some researchers have speculated about possible cultural diffusion, suggesting that maritime knowledge or trade networks may have existed across the Pacific earlier than commonly accepted. Others caution against drawing direct connections, pointing out that Rapa Nui's geology, materials, and island isolation make its architectural achievements remarkable in their own right. Yet, the similarities remain striking enough to provoke questions. Could there have been an exchange of ideas, techniques, or knowledge that bridged vast oceans long before we imagined? Or are these parallels the result of convergent ingenuity, different cultures arriving independently at comparable solutions to similar architectural challenges? The site itself conveys both practical and symbolic significance. Ahu Vinapu was likely used as a platform for ceremonies, rituals, and the display of ancestral power, integrating the spiritual and political dimensions of Rapa Nui society. The placement of stones and the orientation of the platform suggest intentional alignment, possibly with the movements of the sun or the lunar cycle, indicating a sophisticated understanding of celestial patterns. Could the builders have encoded astronomical knowledge within the structure, creating a monument that functioned as both a sacred space and a calendar? And if so, what role did these observations play in shaping the rhythms of daily life, agriculture, or ritual on an island where resources were limited and environmental balance was critical? Adding to the intrigue is the contrast between Ahu Vinapu and other constructions on the island. While some platforms are built from rough-hewn volcanic stones, Ahu Vinapu exhibits a level of refinement rarely seen elsewhere. The stones interlock with a precision that defies conventional explanation, their angles and edges meeting flawlessly without gaps. Could this technique reflect a lost method of shaping stone, an advanced understanding of leverage and friction, or perhaps a combination of careful planning and trial and error refined over generations? And what does this tell us about the society that created it? its hierarchy, its priorities, and its relationship with the natural world. Walking along the platform today, it is easy to feel the weight of time pressing against the stone. The surface bears the marks of centuries of wind, rain, and human touch, yet the integrity of the construction endures. One cannot help but imagine the labor, coordination, and skill required to quarry, transport, and position these massive stones on an island where every resource had to be carefully managed. What was the social organization that enabled such monumental effort, and what stories, rituals, or knowledge were passed down alongside the physical construction itself? Vinapu also invites contemplation of the unknown. Were these walls purely functional, serving as a base for ceremonial activity, or did they also embody cosmological, spiritual, or symbolic meaning? Did the builders intend for the precision of the stonework to communicate messages, both practical and metaphysical, to those who approached the platform? And if so, how much of that meaning has been lost to history, leaving only the silent testimony of carefully placed stones? As the Pacific winds sweep across the platform, the basalt surfaces catch the sunlight, revealing the subtle interplay of angles and edges. Shadows trace the contours of the stones, accentuating the precision and care of the construction and hinting at an intelligence and intention that still challenges modern understanding. Vinapu, like Ollantaytambo before it, reminds us that ancient societies were capable of extraordinary feats, often in ways that stretch our comprehension of what is possible without modern technology. Standing before the platform, one is struck by a sense of quiet mystery, a realization that this remote island holds knowledge carefully encoded in stone. What secrets have vanished with the centuries, and what insights about human ingenuity and ingenuity's limits remain hidden within the walls of Vinapu? Even today, the site resists easy interpretation, offering only questions and suggestions, inviting the observer to wonder, to imagine, and to acknowledge that some ancient achievements may forever straddle the line between the explainable and the enigmatic. From the remote isolation of Easter Island, our exploration returns to the deserts of North America, where the Sonoran sands stretch endlessly under the blazing sun. Here, in the heart of what is now central Arizona, rise the Casa Grande ruins, a massive, 4-story adobe structure that looms over the arid landscape like a sentinel from another age. Though the surrounding terrain is harsh and unforgiving, the ruins convey an unmistakable sense of order, sophistication, and purpose. Even in its weathered state, the great house captivates the imagination, inviting us to ask, who built this imposing structure, and why did they dedicate so much labor to a place so remote? Casa Grande, which translates to Big House in Spanish, was constructed by the Hohokam people sometime between the 13th and 15th centuries. The Hohokam were masterful engineers, known for extensive irrigation canals that transformed the desert into arable land, yet the purpose of Casa Grande itself remains elusive. The building rises nearly 4 stories, its walls thick and carefully plastered to withstand both heat and erosion. Windows and doors are small, seemingly designed for ventilation and defense, yet their placement raises questions. Some scholars suggest that the structure served as an astronomical observatory, oriented to align with solstices and equinoxes. Could the builders have encoded celestial knowledge in its very walls, using the rising and setting sun to mark the passage of time? The construction methods themselves provoke wonder. Adobe bricks, sun-dried and molded by hand, form massive walls capable of enduring centuries of scorching heat and sudden monsoon rains. Yet the precision in which the bricks were laid and the apparent knowledge of structural stability implies careful planning, not mere improvisation. How did the Hohokam conceive of such a tall and durable structure without mortar or modern reinforcement? And why did they choose this specific location, a flat plain near the Gila River, yet somewhat isolated from other contemporary settlements? archaeological evidence provides glimpses into the life and culture of those who built Casa Grande. Excavations have revealed artifacts of pottery, stone tools, and remnants of communal activity, suggesting that the site may have served multiple functions: ceremonial, administrative, and possibly residential. Yet the scale of the structure far exceeds what would be necessary for simple habitation. Was Casa Grande a center for ritual activity, a focal point for regional gatherings, or even a structure with purposes now lost to time? And if ceremonial, what kind of rites or knowledge did it preserve, hidden within the layers of adobe and plaster? The windows and openings themselves hint at sophistication beyond the obvious. Some are positioned to capture sunlight at specific times of year, creating patterns that could have marked agricultural cycles or significant ceremonial events. Others appear oriented toward distant mountains or celestial bodies. Could these alignments be a deliberate code, a way to link the human and natural worlds in a tangible, architectural expression? And if so, what other knowledge might the Hohokam have encoded in ways we have yet to decipher? Adding to the mystery is the question of labor and social organization. Erecting a structure of this magnitude in a harsh desert environment would have required coordinated effort, a detailed plan, and knowledge passed across generations. How did the Hohokam mobilize resources, organize workers, and maintain such precision over years of construction? And what motivated them to invest so heavily in a building whose purpose is only partially understood, leaving behind a monument that speaks more in questions than in answers? Even today, Casa Grande stands as both an engineering marvel and a puzzle. Wind and rain have weathered its exterior, yet the structure retains its geometric clarity, the walls echoing the intentions of builders long gone. As the sun arcs across the desert sky, shadows stretch across terraces and openings, revealing the careful thought in every line, every corner, every alignment. There is an undeniable rhythm to the ruins, a subtle cadence that suggests a sophisticated understanding of both the environment and human perception. Casa Grande also challenges our assumptions about the Hohokam and the broader pre-Columbian cultures of North America. We tend to view these societies as relatively simple, yet this great house demonstrates that complexity need not always manifest in monumental stone cities like those of Mesoamerica or the Andes. The Hohokam, working with earth, sun, and ingenuity, created a structure whose sophistication rivals that of civilizations often given greater recognition in history books. As we stand before the great house, tracing its contours with the eyes and imagination, one cannot help but reflect on the unanswered questions it presents. Who conceived of its design, and how much knowledge, mathematical, astronomical, or spiritual, was necessary to bring it to life? What rituals were performed here, and what messages were embedded in the walls waiting for attentive observers across centuries? And perhaps most intriguingly, what other secrets remain hidden beneath the desert sands, waiting for discovery by those who are willing to look closely, to wonder, and to imagine beyond the evidence that is visible today? Casa Grande reminds us that human ingenuity often transcends time, geography, and technology. In a remote desert plain, centuries before modern tools, a people capable of remarkable thought and skill left behind a structure that continues to challenge, intrigue, and inspire. Its mysteries endure, not as failures of science to explain, but as invitations to explore the limits of our understanding and the boundless potential of human creativity. From the deserts of Arizona, our journey sweeps across oceans and centuries to the Mediterranean, to the small but historically rich archipelago of Malta. Nestled amidst cultivated fields and low hills lies the Tarxien megalithic complex, a prehistoric labyrinth of stone that has endured for over 5,000 years. The site is unassuming at first glance, its weathered megaliths blending into the surrounding landscape, yet each stone hums with quiet authority. Massive blocks, intricately arranged, form chambers, altars, and passageways, testifying to a society whose ambitions, beliefs, and capabilities continue to intrigue modern observers. Here, in the shadow of history, we are reminded that human ingenuity knows no boundaries, whether measured in continents, epochs, or materials. Tarxien is among the most elaborate of Malta's megalithic temples, constructed between 3,300 and 2,500 BCE. The complex is remarkable not only for the size of its stones, some weighing several tons, but for the sophistication of their arrangement. Curved walls, carefully placed orthostats, and intricately carved reliefs suggest a keen understanding of both structural stability and aesthetic design. Carvings of animals, spirals, and abstract patterns cover walls and altars, hinting at symbolic meaning that remains enigmatic. How did the people of this small island community, isolated in the central Mediterranean, conceive of and execute a project of such scale and precision? And what purpose did these temples serve in a world so long before written records? Archaeologists have proposed a variety of explanations. The temples may have functioned as centers for religious rituals, sites for communal gatherings, or focal points for agricultural and seasonal ceremonies. Excavations reveal evidence of altars, offering pits, and carved stone decorations suggesting ceremonial use. Yet the complexity of the structures raises additional questions. Many of the stones interlock or are arranged with a subtle precision that implies knowledge of geometry and construction techniques not usually associated with Neolithic societies. Was this mastery purely practical, ensuring stability and durability, or did it carry a symbolic or ritual significance, perhaps intended to echo cosmological principles or sacred numerology? The carvings themselves deepen the mystery. Reliefs depict domesticated animals, abstract spirals, and human forms in poses that suggest ritual or mythological significance. Some researchers suggest the imagery encodes stories of fertility, life cycles, or celestial observations, while others hint at ceremonial knowledge now lost to time. Could these carvings have served as a form of communication, a symbolic language meant to preserve spiritual and practical knowledge for generations, yet leaving modern observers only fragments of understanding? The layout of Tarxien is equally intriguing. The complex consists of multiple interconnected temples, each with distinct chambers, corridors, and altars. The spatial arrangement appears intentional, suggesting that movement through the site may have followed specific patterns, perhaps mirroring ceremonial rites or mimicking cosmological or natural cycles. Could the architecture itself have guided participants through ritual experiences, creating a tangible journey of observation, contemplation, and spiritual practice? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been irretrievably lost with the passage of time, leaving us to decipher only what survives in stone? Another enigma lies in the construction techniques. The builders worked with local limestone, soft enough to carve but heavy and cumbersome to manipulate. Many stones are dressed with remarkable precision, shaped to fit their neighbors without mortar. How did these Neolithic builders, with no apparent access to advanced tools, achieve such stability and harmony across multiple chambers? Was there a collective knowledge of leverage, counterweight, or geometry passed down through generations, now vanished from human memory? And why did such a small island society devote immense resources to creating monuments of such permanence and complexity? Walking among the remaining stones today, the scale of the achievement is humbling. The walls, though worn by millennia of wind and rain, convey the intention, planning, and skill of their makers. Shadows play across carved reliefs and terraces, revealing subtle angles and alignments that may have been significant to those who once performed rites here. There is a rhythm to the space, a sense that every stone, curve, and carving had a purpose, a resonance that is difficult to fully grasp from the outside. Tarxien also prompts reflection on the broader capabilities of Neolithic societies. How is it that a community so isolated, with limited technology, could produce structures that rival later civilizations in both complexity and artistry? And what knowledge, ritual, mathematical, or otherwise, was encoded in these stones, waiting for attentive observers to uncover its meaning? The site invites us to reconsider assumptions about the limits of human ingenuity, creativity, and the ways that prehistoric people expressed their understanding of the world. As we trace the worn stones and contemplate the carvings of animals, spirals, and abstract forms, we are confronted with the enduring mystery of Tarxien. The intentions, beliefs, and knowledge of its builders remain just out of reach. The complex stands not merely as a collection of stones, but as a testament to human ambition, imagination, and the capacity to shape the environment in ways that endure across millennia. What secrets still linger in the chambers, the carvings, and the spaces between the stones? How much of the knowledge of this remarkable society remains hidden, waiting for discovery or interpretation? Tarxien, like Casa Grande and Vinapu before it, reminds us that ancient structures often speak more through what they conceal than what they reveal. Each stone, carefully placed and carved, is both a clue and a question. And as we stand within the silent, weathered walls of this Neolithic complex, we are invited to wonder, to imagine, and to acknowledge that some mysteries may endure far longer than we can anticipate, challenging us to see the extraordinary in the lives of those who came before. From the windswept fields of Malta, our journey moves to the heart of South America, to the lush valleys and rugged mountains of Bolivia. Perched high above the valleys near the town of Samaipata lies a site that defies simple categorization: El Fuerte de Samaipata. At first glance, it is a massive expanse of carved rock, hewn into terraces, channels, and steps, stretching across hundreds of meters on a single, enormous sandstone outcrop. The site seems at once natural and artificial, a place where human ambition and geological majesty converge. Even today, the sheer scale and complexity of the rock carvings inspire awe and a profound sense of mystery. El Fuerte de Samaipata has been attributed to multiple cultures over time. Evidence suggests that the Chane people, and later the Incas, both occupied and modified the site, adding layers of significance to a landscape already imbued with history. The sheer size of the sandstone platform, carved with precision into sloping terraces, ramps, and niches, indicates meticulous planning and labor. Yet the purpose of these carvings remains unclear. Was this a fortress, as the Spanish named it El Fuerte, or a ceremonial center, a temple, or even an observatory? Or was it all of these things at once, reflecting a layered and evolving understanding of sacred space? The rock itself presents its own mysteries. Massive slabs, some weighing hundreds of tons, have been sculpted into platforms, steps, and basins with an attention to detail that is astonishing given the tools likely available at the time. Channels carved into the rock suggest an intricate system for directing water, perhaps for ceremonial cleansing, irrigation, or symbolic representation. Could these channels also have served astronomical purposes, guiding the reflection of the sun, marking solstices, or tracking the movements of celestial bodies? And if so, what knowledge guided these precise alignments, now nearly lost to the centuries? Among the most striking features of El Fuerte are the enigmatic carvings that cover the rock surfaces. Stylized animals, serpentine motifs, and abstract geometric patterns appear across the expanse, each etched with remarkable care. Some images resemble pumas, condors, or snakes, creatures long associated with Andean mythology, while others are less easily interpreted, abstract forms that seem deliberately enigmatic. Were these carvings intended to convey myth, record history, or encode knowledge of cosmology, geography, or spiritual practice? Or were they created as symbolic expressions of power and identity, meant to communicate messages both visible and hidden to those who approached? Archaeologists have documented signs of multi-phase construction at the site. Certain terraces and carvings appear older, worn and weathered by centuries of exposure, while others are sharper, more refined, suggesting modifications or additions by later occupants. This layering of work hints at a continuity of sacred or social significance, with successive cultures adapting the site to their needs and beliefs. Could El Fuerte have been a focal point for rituals spanning centuries, a place where generations returned to honor the past while asserting their presence on the landscape? And if so, what sacred or political knowledge was passed along with each modification, now obscured by time? The location itself adds to the intrigue. Samaipata lies at the edge of the highlands, overlooking fertile valleys below, a place both defensible and symbolically potent. The site commands sweeping views, yet its construction seems to embrace the natural contours of the rock rather than imposing arbitrary forms. Could the builders have intended a dialogue between human-made structures and the natural world, a synthesis of geology and architecture meant to reflect cosmic or spiritual principles? And if so, what can we infer about their understanding of landscape, environment, and the interconnectedness of earth, sky, and human activity? Even as modern visitors traverse the terraces, touch the carved channels, and trace the outlines of enigmatic animals, the site resists definitive interpretation. How was such a massive project coordinated without written records, advanced tools, or modern surveying techniques? And why did multiple cultures invest so heavily in shaping a single sandstone outcrop, turning it into a monumental stage for human ritual and expression? Walking along the worn terraces today, it is impossible not to sense the presence of countless hands and minds that labored here. The stones and carvings, shaped over centuries, convey purpose, intentionality, and perhaps even a philosophy of space, cosmology, and spirituality. Yet their meaning remains elusive, inviting careful observation, reflection, and wonder. What messages were meant to endure, and which were lost to the passage of time? El Fuerte de Samaipata challenges our assumptions about ancient societies and their capabilities. It reminds us that monumental construction need not rely solely on the use of cut blocks or towering walls. Ingenuity can be expressed in sculpted landscapes, terraces, and carefully aligned carvings. It is a testament to the vision of its creators, whose understanding of labor, geometry, and symbolism allowed them to transform a natural rock formation into a cultural and spiritual focal point of extraordinary magnitude. As the sun casts long shadows across the terraces, channels, and carved figures, the site seems to speak quietly, offering more questions than answers. What knowledge, now lost, guided the hands that shaped the rock? Were these terraces merely functional, ceremonial, or symbolic? And could they have been all three simultaneously? And perhaps most intriguingly, what other insights about Andean cosmology, ritual, or social organization might still lie hidden beneath the worn surfaces, waiting for those patient enough to observe and interpret? El Fuerte de Samaipata stands as a bridge between human ambition and the natural world, a canvas of rock that continues to provoke curiosity, wonder, and mystery. Its terraces, carvings, and channels are more than relics. They are questions, silently inviting us to consider the ingenuity, spirituality, and imagination of those who shaped it, and to acknowledge that some mysteries of human history remain tantalizingly beyond reach, lingering in stone for millennia. From the towering sandstone terraces of Bolivia, our journey stretches across the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean to the lush, tropical landscapes of Bali, Indonesia. Hidden within the verdant slopes of the Pakarasan River Valley lies a site that merges the sacred and the enigmatic, the Gunung Kawi rock shrines. Here, massive shrines have been hewn directly from living rock, their vertical faces carved into cliff walls that rise over 20 meters above the river below. The shrine's sheer scale, precision, and placement against the jungle-draped cliffs immediately command attention, drawing the observer into a world where nature and human ambition intertwine seamlessly. As sunlight filters through dense foliage, illuminating terraces and niches, one can almost feel the presence of those who shaped the stone, their intentions etched into every surface. Gunung Kawi is believed to date back to the 11th century, during the reign of the Balinese king Anak Wungsu of the Udayana dynasty. The site is composed of 10 monumental rock-cut shrines, known locally as Kandi, flanked by terraces carved directly into the cliffside. Scholars suggest these shrines were intended to honor members of the royal family, with each Kandi serving as both a tomb and a ceremonial monument. Yet even with this understanding, the mechanics and methods behind the construction remain profoundly mysterious. How were these colossal rock faces carved with such precision, without the aid of modern tools, cranes, or scaffolding? And why were these particular cliffs, steep and nearly inaccessible, chosen as the site for the shrines, rather than more conventional ground-level locations? The engineering itself is remarkable. Each shrine is cut with clean, sharp edges, forming rectangular chambers that align both vertically and horizontally with uncanny precision. Terraces interconnect the shrines, leading from the riverbank to the upper reaches of the cliffs, suggesting careful planning and advanced knowledge of both gravity and leverage. Some researchers have proposed that ancient techniques involving bamboo levers, pulleys, and controlled erosion might explain the physical construction, yet these remain hypotheses. The sheer smoothness of the rock faces and the meticulous proportions of each shrine defy easy explanation, leaving room for speculation about whether the builders possessed knowledge or methods that have since been lost to time. Beyond the technical questions, the shrines carry a profound symbolic weight. The placement of each Kandi, the orientation of terraces, and the alignment along the river all suggest a deliberate integration of spiritual, cosmological, and environmental considerations. Could the shrines have been positioned to reflect celestial patterns, to harmonize with the flow of water and sunlight, or to create a sacred path for rituals and ceremonies? The terraces themselves, cut with precise steps and gentle slopes, may have been designed to guide processions, to channel energy, or to frame the shrines as visual focal points that communicate power and reverence. Carvings on the shrines and nearby stones deepen the intrigue. Some depict abstract motifs, geometric patterns, or symbolic representations of deities and mythological creatures, while others remain subtle or eroded, leaving only the suggestion of intention. Did these carvings encode spiritual teachings, historical records, or knowledge of ritual practices? Or were they simply expressions of devotion, their meaning known only to those who once traversed the terraces and ascended the cliff faces in ceremonial observance? The ambiguity invites the observer to consider what might have been understood by contemporary participants and what knowledge has been lost to the centuries. Gunung Kawi's location itself adds layers of mystery. The shrines are set amidst steep cliffs and dense jungle, overlooking the Pakarasan River and the surrounding valley. Access requires navigating terraces, staircases, and river paths, suggesting that approach to the shrines was intended to be deliberate, perhaps even transformative. Could the journey itself have been part of a ritual experience, a test of devotion, or a symbolic passage from the mundane to the sacred? And if so, what does this tell us about the worldview of the Balinese royalty and priesthood who commissioned and oversaw such a monumental project? Archaeological investigations indicate that the site was in active use over several generations, with modifications and restorations layered upon the original construction. This raises questions about continuity and cultural memory. Did later generations maintain the original vision, or adapt the site for new spiritual or political purposes? How much of what we see today reflects the original intent, and how much represents reinterpretation or evolution over time? The complexity of the site suggests a sophisticated understanding of both temporal and spatial continuity, blending practical construction with enduring spiritual significance. The combination of monumental scale, precise engineering, and symbolic placement challenges our assumptions about the capabilities of 11th century societies in Bali. How did they achieve such feats in a tropical environment, where erosion, vegetation, and rainfall would have complicated every stage of construction? Did they possess specialized knowledge of stone properties, structural mechanics, or construction techniques that have since been forgotten? And what cultural or spiritual imperatives drove them to invest such labor, time, and artistry into shrines carved directly from cliffs rather than constructing freestanding monuments on level ground? Walking among the terraces and observing the shrines today, it is easy to sense the presence of the builders, the rituals performed, and the generations of devotion that shaped this sacred landscape. The interplay of shadow and light across the carved surfaces, the rhythm of terraces and stairways, and the enduring solidity of the stone all speak to intentionality, skill, and perhaps a worldview that intertwined human endeavor with natural forces. Yet the deeper meaning, the full scope of knowledge and belief embedded in the site, remains tantalizingly out of reach. Gunung Kawi, like the other sites we have explored, from El Fuerte de Samaipata to Tarxien and beyond, reminds us that human creativity, ingenuity, and spirituality often transcend the apparent limitations of their time. These rock shrines stand as silent witnesses, posing questions rather than offering answers, challenging us to consider what knowledge, skill, and devotion were required to shape them. What secrets are hidden in the precise cuts, the symbolic carvings, and the terraces etched into living rock? How much understanding of ritual, cosmology, or engineering has been lost to history, leaving only the enduring mystery of what remains? As the tropical sunlight shifts and filters through the trees, casting dynamic patterns across terraces and shrines, one is struck by a sense of both permanence and fragility. Human ambition captured in stone, yet constantly subject to the slow passage of time. Gunung Kawi invites contemplation, curiosity, and wonder. Its mysteries endure, quietly asking those who visit to ponder not only how these structures were built, but why, and what the lost knowledge of their creators might still teach us about the extraordinary capabilities of ancient societies. From the verdant terraces of Bali, our journey returns to the rugged highlands of the Andes, to the place where rivers converge and mist clings to the mountainsides. Chavín de Huántar. Nestled in the narrow Santa River Valley of northern Peru, this ancient site rises like a labyrinth of stone, carved terraces, and subterranean galleries, enveloped in an atmosphere that has captivated archaeologists, historians, and travelers for over a century. From afar, the site appears as a cluster of megalithic constructions, carefully positioned along the riverbanks and encircled by steep hills. Up close, it reveals an astonishing complexity. Platforms, plazas, and tunnels interweaving in a network that hints at ceremonial, social, and perhaps even esoteric purposes. Chavín de Huántar, dating from roughly 900 to 200 BCE, was the spiritual and political heart of the Chavín culture, one of the earliest known civilizations in the Andean region. Archaeological evidence suggests that the site served as a center of religious worship, pilgrimage, and artistic innovation. Carved stone sculptures, intricate reliefs, and enigmatic monoliths are scattered throughout the complex, depicting humans, animals, and hybrid forms that seem to straddle the boundaries between the natural and supernatural. Among the most famous is the Lanzón, a granite monolith intricately carved with a deity figure, its proportions and placement designed to dominate the central temple chamber. But while much has been discovered, the full purpose and meaning of Chavín remains shrouded in mystery. The architecture itself is remarkable. The site is built around a complex system of plazas, ramps, and subterranean galleries. These underground passages, some running hundreds of meters beneath the surface, were constructed with a precision that allows water to flow through channels while creating an acoustic environment that amplifies sound in unusual and unexpected ways. Some researchers have speculated that the galleries were designed to produce a sensory experience, where the flow of water, combined with echoing chants or the movements of priests, created a profound psychological effect for those participating in ritual ceremonies. Could these architectural choices represent a deliberate manipulation of perception intended to evoke awe, reverence, or altered states of consciousness? Chavín is also renowned for its sculptural and artistic achievements. Stoneheads, altars, and stelae depict animals such as jaguars, eagles, and snakes, often fused with human features in hybrid forms that challenge easy interpretation. These figures are repeated throughout the site, suggesting a symbolic language that communicated power, spirituality, or cosmology. Was this iconography intended to guide initiates through complex rituals, to encode astronomical knowledge, or to convey moral and spiritual teachings? And if so, how much of this symbolic knowledge has been lost, leaving us to puzzle over images whose meaning was once vividly understood? Water plays a central and enigmatic role in Chavín's design. Channels and drains are carved throughout the site, channeling mountain streams with careful precision into underground galleries. In some cases, water emerges into open courtyards or near sacred sculptures, suggesting an intimate relationship between the natural and the constructed. Did these features serve purely practical purposes, such as drainage, or were they symbolic, ritualistic, or even acoustical in nature, transforming the site into a space where sight, sound, and motion converged to create an immersive spiritual experience? The planning and construction of Chavín also raise questions about knowledge and skill. Stones were transported, carved, and fitted with remarkable precision, creating structures that have survived centuries of earthquakes, erosion, and human activity. How did the Chavín architects achieve such durability and alignment with the technology available at the time? Was there a specialized class of artisans and engineers who passed down knowledge orally, encoded in ritual practice, or were the techniques widely understood within the community? And how did these builders integrate natural topography, water, and stone into a cohesive vision that combined ceremonial, symbolic, and practical purposes? Beyond the tangible architecture, Chavín hints at an understanding of the cosmos. Some alignments of temples and plazas appear to correspond with the movement of celestial bodies, including solstices and equinoxes. Could the site have functioned as a celestial observatory, a calendar for agriculture, or a symbolic map of the universe? If so, how sophisticated was their understanding of astronomy, and how deeply intertwined was this knowledge with religious practice and social organization? The answers remain elusive, but the possibility invites contemplation of a society whose intellectual and spiritual reach may have extended far beyond what is immediately visible. Walking through Chavín today, the visitor experiences a blend of the monumental and the mysterious. The interplay of light and shadow across terraces, sculptures, and galleries, the echoing channels of flowing water, and the meticulous carvings all create a sense of deliberate design that is both practical and symbolic. Every step suggests careful intention, yet much remains hidden from view. Chambers sealed beneath layers of stone, reliefs whose meanings have faded with time, and galleries designed to manipulate perception in ways that challenge modern understanding. Chavín de Huántar, like Gunung Kawi before it, reminds us that ancient structures were not merely functional, they were experiential, symbolic, and profoundly intentional. They encode knowledge, belief systems, and social organization in ways that transcend written records. And yet, despite centuries of study, many questions remain. What specific rituals took place here, and what knowledge did they convey? How much of the Chavín worldview, its spiritual cosmology and social structure, is encoded in the architecture and art? And what insights might still lie hidden beneath the stone floors, behind carvings, or within the labyrinthine galleries, waiting for discovery or interpretation? As the Andean sunlight shifts across carved stone and flowing water, Chavín de Huántar stands as a monument to human ingenuity, spirituality, and mystery. Its corridors, galleries, and plazas do not speak in words, but in questions, in impressions, and in challenges to our understanding of what was possible for a civilization that thrived over 2 millennia ago. In every shadowed chamber, every flowing channel, and every carved relief, the site invites reflection and curiosity. What knowledge did its builders hold, and what secrets remain locked within the stones, waiting for those patient enough to seek them out? Chavín de Huántar endures as both a marvel and a mystery, a testament to the complexity, ambition, and vision of an ancient people. And as we contemplate the interwoven stone, water, and sacred imagery, we are reminded once again that some mysteries of human history are not fully revealed through excavation or scholarship alone. They require wonder, observation, and the acknowledgement that the past often speaks more in questions than answers. From the sunlit valleys and labyrinthine galleries of Chavín de Huántar, our journey turns northward, across oceans and centuries, to the windswept coasts of Orkney, Scotland. Here on the grassy plains that meet the cold waters of the North Sea lie the remains of Skara Brae, Europe's most complete Neolithic settlement, a village preserved beneath layers of soil and sand for over 5 millennia. The moment one steps among the weathered stone houses, partially buried and partially exposed, there is a sense of stepping directly into the lives of a vanished people. Each carefully shaped stone, each low doorway, and each sunken floor conveys intention, habit, and perhaps even a worldview long lost to time. Skara Brae dates to roughly 3,180 BCE to 2,500 BCE, a period long before written history in this region. The settlement consists of 8 clustered houses, each constructed from local stone slabs and designed with remarkable uniformity. Interiors reveal stone-built furniture, beds, dressers, storage boxes, and hearths, integrated seamlessly into the walls, creating living spaces both functional and enduring. The level of sophistication is striking. Every element of daily life, from food preparation to storage, is accounted for. Yet the design choices also suggest a careful attention to social structure, communal living, and perhaps ritual or symbolic expression. What makes Skara Brae particularly intriguing is not just the preservation of domestic spaces, but the evidence of deliberate planning and advanced adaptation to its environment. The village was buried under sand following a series of storms, which inadvertently preserved its layout for millennia. The orientation of houses, the arrangement of hearths, and the connectivity between structures point to a community highly attuned to its surroundings, able to survive in a harsh, windy, and isolated landscape. Could these design decisions also reflect a deeper understanding of social cohesion, environmental adaptation, or symbolic alignment with celestial events? The construction itself challenges modern assumptions about Neolithic capabilities. Stones were quarried, shaped, and placed without the use of metal tools, yet the result is remarkably precise. Hearths, beds, and storage units are integrated into the stone walls, demonstrating both practical ingenuity and a vision of permanence. How did the builders develop these methods, and what knowledge, mathematical, engineering, or otherwise, was passed down through generations to achieve such uniformity and durability? Were these techniques purely functional, Or did they also carry social or spiritual significance for the community? Skara Brae's interiors also invite speculation about daily life, ritual, and cultural practices. Tools, utensils, and ornaments found on site indicate a community adept in fishing, hunting, and crafting. Yet some aspects remain puzzling. Certain stones appear carved for purposes beyond the strictly utilitarian, their grooves and shapes possibly intended for ceremonial use or symbolic meaning. Were these elements a form of prehistoric art, or did they encode knowledge of social roles, spirituality, or cosmology? And if so, how much of that knowledge was understood by all members of the settlement, and how much was reserved for an elite or priestly class? The site's arrangement raises further questions. Houses are built close together, connected by low, covered passages that suggest intentional sheltering from harsh winds, but also imply a community tightly knit in both space and social structure. Could this proximity have facilitated communal decision-making, collective rituals, or the transmission of oral knowledge? The design also minimizes exposure to the elements, showing a sophisticated understanding of climate and terrain, knowledge achieved without modern measurement tools, yet remarkably effective in creating durable, livable structures. Equally compelling is the question of symbolism. Some researchers speculate that the low doorways and inward-facing design reflect ritual or cultural practices, perhaps controlling access to private versus communal spaces. Others note alignments that may correspond with seasonal changes in sunlight, hinting at an awareness of solar patterns and their importance for agriculture or ceremonial observances. Were these architectural choices purely practical, or did they carry layered meanings that integrated daily life, environmental awareness, and spiritual understanding? Walking through the partially excavated streets of Skara Brae, one is struck by the enduring presence of its inhabitants. The hearths, beds, and storage areas evoke daily routines, the preparation of food, the care of children, the work of crafting tools, but also suggest intentionality in design, a philosophy of living in harmony with both environment and community. Each stone wall, carefully constructed, whispers of knowledge lost to time, inviting observers to consider how a remote Neolithic society could achieve such cohesion, skill, and foresight. The preservation of Skara Brae also raises questions about the interplay between nature and human ingenuity. The encroaching sand that buried the village acted as both destroyer and preserver, protecting the site from centuries of erosion while simultaneously obscuring the lives it sheltered. Could the builders have anticipated the long-term vulnerability of their settlement, or was its survival purely accidental? And if accidental, what does this serendipitous preservation reveal about the fragility and resilience of human endeavors against the forces of nature? Even in its ruined state, Skara Brae continues to challenge assumptions about Neolithic Europe. The precision of construction, the integration of furniture and functional design into stone walls, and the subtle yet deliberate planning of communal spaces suggest a society capable of sophisticated thought, careful observation, and long-term planning. Yet many mysteries remain. What belief systems guided their choices? How did they conceptualize community, ritual, and daily life? And what knowledge, encoded in stone and lost to time, might we still uncover if we look closely enough? As the North Sea wind sweeps across the settlement, stirring the grass that grows among the stones, Skara Brae feels both intimate and monumental. It is a place where daily life, architecture, and possibly spiritual practice converge in ways that remain elusive to modern understanding. Each hearth, bed, and stone wall poses questions about ingenuity, adaptation, and cultural expression. And as we trace the remnants of these sunken homes, we are reminded that the past often communicates more through mystery than explanation, leaving us to imagine the lives, knowledge, and intentions of those who shaped it. Skara Brae stands as a bridge between human necessity and human imagination, a testament to the skill, foresight, and perhaps spiritual awareness of a Neolithic society. Like Chavín de Huántar before it, the settlement invites contemplation and curiosity. Its stones, terraces, and passages speak silently yet eloquently, offering more questions than answers. How did these people conceive of their world? What knowledge guided their hands and minds? And what other secrets, long buried beneath grass and sand, might still remain, waiting to reveal the extraordinary capabilities of a civilization that vanished thousands of years ago? From the windswept plains of Orkney, our journey moves across the North Sea and over the rolling green hills of Ireland to the Boyne Valley, where the landscape rises in gentle undulations dotted with ancient stones. Amidst these fields lies one of Europe's most enigmatic monuments, Newgrange. From a distance, it appears as a low, grassy mound, blending into the verdant Irish countryside, unremarkable to the casual eye. Yet beneath its grassy exterior lies a complex, intricately engineered passage tomb that has endured for over 5,000 years, standing as a silent witness to the lives, knowledge, and beliefs of a people long vanished. Its very presence evokes awe, challenging our understanding of what prehistoric societies could conceive and accomplish. Newgrange dates to roughly 3,200 BCE, making it older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The mound itself measures over 80 meters in diameter and rises more than 12 meters high, enclosing a stone passageway that leads to a central chamber with corbelled roof stones, some weighing several tons. Around the base, massive curbstones are decorated with spirals, lozenges, and other abstract carvings, etched with a precision and artistry that remains striking to modern eyes. How did a society without metal tools, wheeled transport, or written language achieve such architectural mastery? And why was such effort expended in constructing a monument of this scale? One of Newgrange's most extraordinary features is its alignment with the winter solstice. Each year, at dawn, sunlight penetrates a narrow roof box above the entrance and travels down the long passage, illuminating the inner chamber for a brief but precise moment. This phenomenon suggests a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, observation, and seasonal cycles. How did its builders, living thousands of years ago, calculate the sun's path with such accuracy? Was this alignment intended for ritual, agricultural, or symbolic purposes, or some combination of all three? And what meaning did this light hold for the people who gathered within the tomb during the darkest days of the year? The construction of Newgrange is a testament to both ingenuity and communal effort. The corbelled roof of the central chamber, still standing after millennia, is an engineering marvel, distributing immense weight without collapsing. Each stone was carefully shaped and positioned, yet the methods by which the builders lifted, transported, and fitted them remain largely speculative. Did they employ simple machines, levers, ropes, and ingenuity alone? Or were their methods lost to history, passed down orally, refined over generations, that allowed for the precise placement of massive stones? Beyond engineering, the artistic elements of Newgrange deepen the mystery. The curbstones and interior walls are covered with abstract motifs, spirals, and geometric patterns. Some resemble symbols of the sun, cycles of life, or natural elements, yet their exact meaning is unknown. Were these carvings purely decorative? Did they represent sacred knowledge? Or were they a form of communication understood only by initiates? The consistency and repetition of certain patterns across the site suggest an intentional symbolic language, perhaps conveying cosmological, spiritual, or social knowledge, but one that has been lost to time. The passage itself is narrow and deliberately constructed, forcing visitors to stoop or crawl, creating a physical and psychological journey from the outside world into the inner sanctum. Could this experience have been ritualistic, designed to instill awe, reverence, or transformation? The builders may have understood that the act of moving through the dark, enclosed passage before emerging into the illuminated chamber at sunrise mirrored spiritual or cosmological journeys, embedding a layered meaning into the very architecture of the tomb. Newgrange also raises questions about social organization and purpose. Constructing such a monument would have required substantial coordination, planning, and labor over many years, if not decades. Who directed this effort? How was knowledge transmitted among workers? And why did this community choose to invest so much in a tomb and ceremonial center? Unlike typical burial sites, Newgrange was clearly more than a resting place for the dead. It was a monument of power, ritual, and perhaps a deliberate connection between humanity, the natural world, and the cosmos. The surrounding landscape adds another dimension to its mystery. Newgrange is part of a larger complex of Neolithic monuments in the Boyne Valley, including Noath and Douth, each with its own passage tombs, curbstones, and carvings. The clustering of these sites suggests that this area was a significant ceremonial center, yet the reason for this concentration in a relatively small valley remains unclear. Was the Boyne Valley chosen for its geographic prominence, its symbolic resonance, or its alignment with celestial phenomena? And what knowledge, ritual, or power structures were encoded in the relationships between these monuments, now only partially understood by modern archaeology? Walking around Newgrange today, one is struck by the harmony between human construction and the landscape. The mound appears organic, almost as if it grew from the earth itself, yet every stone, every carving, and every angle speaks of intention, knowledge, and effort. The passage, curbstones, and inner chamber do not merely function as a tomb. They engage with light, landscape, and perception, creating an immersive experience that connects the physical and the symbolic. It is this interplay of the tangible and the intangible that continues to fascinate researchers and visitors alike. Newgrange, like Skara Brae before it, illustrates the extraordinary capabilities of prehistoric societies, blending practical skill, artistic vision, and cosmic awareness. Yet, despite centuries of study, many questions remain. What rituals were performed within the mound? How precisely did its builders understand the movements of the sun and the cycles of the year? And what social, spiritual, or cultural knowledge was encoded in the carvings, the passage, and the mound itself, knowledge that modern science can describe, but perhaps never fully interpret? As dawn breaks over the Boyne Valley, illuminating the grassy mound, Newgrange stands as both a monument and a question. Its corbelled chamber, curbstones, and sunlit passage speak across millennia, inviting reflection on human ingenuity, spirituality, and the mysteries of ancient life. What secrets linger within the stones, waiting for patient observation and contemplation? And how much of the knowledge of its creators remains hidden, waiting to reveal the extraordinary understanding, skill, and vision of a civilization that lived long before written history, yet continues to inspire wonder today? From the rolling green hills and solar-aligned chambers of Newgrange, our journey carries us south, across the European continent, to the rugged landscapes of Andalusia in southern Spain. Nestled near the town of Antequera, amid limestone ridges and rocky outcrops, lies a prehistoric monument that has captivated observers for centuries, the Dolmen of Menga. From a distance, it appears as a simple mound of stone, a relic of a distant past. Yet, as one approaches, the scale of the structure becomes apparent. Massive megaliths arranged with astonishing precision, forming a chamber that has endured for over 5,000 years. The Dolmen of Menga, one of the largest known megalithic tombs in Europe, invites contemplation, challenging our assumptions about what early societies were capable of achieving. The dolmen dates to approximately 3,750 to 3,650 BCE, placing it firmly in the late Neolithic period. It consists of a long corridor of enormous vertical stones supporting horizontal capstones, creating a covered space over 20 meters in length and nearly 4 meters high. The stones themselves are immense, some weighing over 180 tons, quarried from a site several kilometers away. The sheer size of these monoliths raises immediate questions. How did a prehistoric society, without cranes, wheeled transport, or modern engineering knowledge, manage to move, lift, and place stones of this magnitude with such precision? And why devote such monumental effort to a tomb when the survival of the community itself demanded so much labor and ingenuity? Beyond its scale, the Dolmen of Menga presents an enigmatic relationship with the surrounding landscape. Unlike many megalithic tombs whose entrances are aligned with solar phenomena, Menga is oriented toward the distant peak of the Peña de los Enamorados, a natural limestone formation resembling the profile of a reclining human face. Was this alignment intentional, and if so, why? Did it hold spiritual, symbolic, or territorial significance? Could the dolmen have been deliberately positioned to interact with the landscape, drawing energy, meaning, or identity from the natural feature? The precise reasoning remains uncertain, yet the connection between stone and mountain suggests a sophisticated understanding of geography and symbolism, a relationship that transcends mere functionality. The construction techniques of Menga are equally remarkable. The massive megaliths were cut and shaped with surprising accuracy, placed to form a stable, enduring structure without the use of mortar. Some stones feature fine joints and carefully flattened surfaces, demonstrating knowledge of weight distribution and mechanical stability. How did the builders achieve such precision with only stone, bone, or wooden tools? Was it purely trial and error, passed down through generations? Or did they possess more advanced methods, perhaps now lost, that allowed them to manipulate these colossal stones with confidence? The interior of the dolmen hints at both practical and ceremonial purposes, while human remains found within suggest its use as a burial site. The scale of the structure far exceeds what would be required to house the dead alone. Could Menga have also served as a communal space, a ceremonial center, or a site of social cohesion? The long corridor, culminating in a central chamber, guides visitors in a procession-like journey, heightening the sense of ritual and anticipation. Was this design intended to create an experience of awe, reflection, or communion with ancestors or spiritual forces? And if so, what rituals or knowledge were encoded in this architectural journey, now obscured by millennia? Carvings and markings, though sparse, add another layer of intrigue. Some stones display subtle grooves or geometric patterns, their meaning lost to time. Were these artistic expressions, symbolic representations of cosmological principles, or practical markers used during construction? Could the repetition of certain forms have encoded knowledge about the cosmos, seasonal cycles, or social hierarchy, creating a language of stone accessible only to the initiated? The ambiguity invites reflection on the ways in which prehistoric societies transmitted knowledge, belief, and power without written records. The Dolmen of Menga also challenges our understanding of social organization. Coordinating the quarrying, transportation, and precise placement of stones weighing tens or hundreds of tons would have required a high degree of cooperation, planning, and leadership. Did the builders rely on communal labor, ritualized work, or an elite class of organizers and engineers? How were these skills learned, shared, and preserved across generations in a society that left no written documentation? The answers remain elusive, yet the monument itself stands as irrefutable evidence of both ambition and capability. Beyond the dolmen itself, the surrounding landscape deepens the mystery. Menga is part of the Antikythera megalithic complex, which includes the Dolmen of Vieira, the Dolmen of El Romeral, and other prehistoric constructions. Each structure has unique features, alignments, and orientations, yet all appear to interact with the landscape, the stars, and each other. What drove these prehistoric communities to invest in multiple monumental projects across the same valley? Was there a broader spiritual or cultural vision linking tombs, mountains, and sky in a coherent cosmology? Or were these structures markers of territory, power, or identity, signaling the presence of a sophisticated society to contemporaneous groups? Walking through the corridor of Menga today, one is struck by the immensity of the stones and the intentionality of the construction. The interior evokes both intimacy and grandeur. The low passage forces the visitor to bow and navigate carefully, creating a sense of humility and reverence. The central chamber, enclosed by enormous capstones, resonates with permanence and silence, as if holding centuries of human thought, labor, and ceremony within its stones. How many generations participated in the creation of this monument, and how much of their collective knowledge, belief, or ritual has been lost, preserved only in the silent presence of the stones. The Dolmen of Menga, like New Grange before it, demonstrates that prehistoric societies were capable of extraordinary feats of engineering, planning, and symbolic expression. Yet many questions remain unanswered. What rituals were performed here? How did the builders move and position stones of such mass with the technology of their time? What knowledge, social structures, and cosmological understanding informed the choice to orient the tomb toward a distant mountain rather than the sun or stars? As sunlight moves across the limestone, casting shadows along the long corridor and over the massive capstones, the dolmen stands as a testament to human ambition, skill, and mystery. It challenges us to consider not only the physical achievement but also the intellectual and spiritual capacity of a society that lived thousands of years ago. The monument endures, posing questions in stone. What knowledge lies encoded in its corridors and chambers? How much of the worldview of its builders can we begin to reconstruct? And what remains forever hidden? Menga reminds us that ancient structures often speak more through what they conceal than what they reveal. Every stone, carefully selected and placed, is both evidence and enigma. And as we trace the passageway with our eyes and imagination, we are invited to contemplate the extraordinary ingenuity, spirituality, and enduring mystery of a people who shaped their world with stone, leaving behind a monument that continues to inspire awe and wonder across the millennia. From the monumental stones of Andalusia, our journey returns once more to the rugged landscapes of Peru, tracing the contours of the Andean foothills toward the arid coastal valleys of the Casa region. Here, in a barren plateau etched by centuries of wind and sun, lies a site whose stark imagery has both fascinated and unsettled researchers. Cerro Chavín. At first glance, the site appears unremarkable, a cluster of low stone structures and weathered platforms rising from the rocky desert floor. Yet upon closer inspection, a chilling narrative emerges from the stones themselves. The walls, adorned with bas-reliefs of human figures, warriors, and mysterious symbols, convey a story frozen in time, its meaning partially understood, its full significance obscured by millennia. Cerro Chavín dates to around 1600 BCE, part of the Casa culture that thrived along the northern Peruvian coast. The central platform, approximately 60 meters long and 20 meters wide, is flanked by smaller structures. Yet it is the facade that arrests attention. Over 300 carved figures, etched into slabs of local stone with remarkable clarity and consistency. Some depict warriors in rigid frontal poses, while others portray prone or decapitated figures, sometimes with what appear to be weapons or ritual implements. The immediacy of these carvings, the directness of their forms, communicates a visual intensity that resonates across time, drawing observers into questions that have no easy answers. The function of Cerro Chavín remains a subject of debate. Was it a fortress, a ceremonial center, a tomb, or some combination thereof? Archaeologists have noted the defensive-like arrangement of platforms and terraces, suggesting a site designed for protection or control. Yet the bas-reliefs themselves hint at ritual, symbolism, or narrative intent beyond mere utilitarian purpose. Were the figures carved to commemorate victories, intimidate enemies, or narrate mythic or historical events? And if these images depict ritual sacrifice, as some scholars propose, what does this reveal about the social, political, or spiritual structures of the Casa Chavín culture? The artistry of the carvings is striking. Each figure is rendered in low relief, yet with astonishing detail, capturing postures, attire, and expressions in a style both stylized and evocative. Warriors, often portrayed in rigid symmetry, hold weapons or ceremonial objects, while the prone and decapitated figures lie beneath them, evoking a story of confrontation, dominance, or ritualized violence. Could these bas-reliefs represent real events, ceremonial reenactments, or symbolic allegories? And if symbolic, what knowledge, belief systems, or cultural imperatives informed their creation? The precision and repetition of forms suggest not only skilled craftsmanship, but also a codified visual language, understood by participants within the society, yet largely opaque to modern observers. Cerro Chávín's location adds another layer of intrigue. The site sits atop a plateau overlooking the Casa and Chavín rivers, commanding expansive views of the surrounding valleys. Such positioning suggests strategic as well as symbolic considerations. Did the builders choose this site for its defensive advantages, for its proximity to water and resources, or for its spiritual significance within the landscape? Could the plateau itself have been viewed as sacred, a liminal space bridging the human and divine, the temporal and eternal? The interplay between geography and construction implies that the choice of site was as deliberate as the carvings themselves. The scale and execution of the bas-reliefs also raise technical questions. The figures, often larger than life, were carved with remarkable uniformity into hard stone surfaces, a feat requiring both skill and planning. How were these figures measured, outlined, and chiseled with precision using stone and bronze tools, long before the advent of iron or advanced surveying instruments? Were templates, grids, or ritualistic practices employed to guide the artisans? And could the apparent uniformity of style across multiple slabs indicate centralized control, a shared artistic tradition, or even a codified ceremonial language spanning generations? Beyond their immediate visual impact, the bas-reliefs of Cerro Chavín invite contemplation of meaning, context, and intent. The juxtaposition of warriors and prone figures, the repetition of certain motifs, and the deliberate composition of the facade suggest a narrative logic. Was this narrative historical, recounting events of conquest or social order? Or was it mythic, intended to convey cosmological or spiritual truths in a medium that could be read by the initiated, but remained opaque to outsiders? And if the carvings served as moral or spiritual instruction, what lessons were embedded in their forms? And how might they have shaped the behaviors, beliefs, and hierarchy of the society that created them? The mystery deepens when considering the broader archaeological context. Cerro Chavín is part of a cluster of Casa Chavín sites along the northern Peruvian coast, including Chavín Alto and Taucachi Conchan, each with monumental architecture, plazas, and carved stones. The repeated emphasis on large platforms, carved facades, and ritualized imagery suggests a shared cultural or religious framework. Yet how these sites interacted, what networks of knowledge or power connected them, and how information was transmitted remain largely speculative. Could the bas-reliefs at Cerro Sachin be part of a larger visual language spanning multiple sites, encoding social, spiritual, or political hierarchies for a civilization that left no written record? Walking along the weathered stones of Cerro Sachin today, one is struck by the immediacy of the carvings. Despite erosion and time, the figures remain clear, their presence both imposing and haunting. The site conveys a story of human endeavor, of societies striving to record, commemorate, or perform rituals that transcend the ordinary. Yet the full narrative eludes us. What precisely did these images signify to the people who created them? How were ceremonies, social hierarchies, and cosmological beliefs interwoven into these stone canvases? And what remains hidden, lost to erosion, decay, or deliberate omission, leaving only the fragments we can observe and interpret? Cerro Sachin, like the other ancient sites we have explored, from Skara Brae to New Grange and the Dolmen of Menga, reminds us that human societies, even thousands of years ago, were capable of remarkable technical skill, symbolic sophistication, and conceptual vision. Yet it also reminds us of the limits of our understanding. The stones speak, but they speak in riddles. Of rituals we can only imagine, of political or spiritual systems we can only infer, and of knowledge whose full scope remains tantalizingly beyond our reach. As the Andean sun casts long shadows across the bas-reliefs, highlighting warriors and the fallen alike, Cerro Sachin stands as both record and enigma, a monument of human creativity, and a question carved into stone. Its walls invite reflection, curiosity, and wonder. What truths did its builders intend to preserve? What knowledge, fears, and beliefs are encoded in the rigid postures, the decapitated figures, and the repeated motifs? And what secrets remain hidden beneath the surface, waiting for those who approach with patience, observation, and imagination to discern the full story of a civilization that expressed itself so boldly, yet left its most profound mysteries unanswered? From the carved stones of Cerro Sachin, we move across continents and seas to the rocky hills of the Peloponnese, where the ruins of one of ancient Greece's most iconic civilizations silently guard secrets from a distant past. Nestled atop a ridge near the modern town of Mycenae, the Tholos tombs, often called beehive tombs for their distinctive shape, rise subtly from the earth, almost hidden from view amidst olive groves and limestone outcrops. Though time and human activity have worn away much of their grandeur, the Tholos tombs still speak of extraordinary architectural achievement and ritual significance, inviting us to ponder the knowledge and intentions of the Mycenaean people who built them over 3 millennia ago. The Tholos tombs, dating from roughly 1600 to 1200 BCE, were monumental burial structures reserved for the elite, kings, nobles, and perhaps even mythic figures whose names have been lost to history. Unlike conventional flat-roofed tombs, these structures employed a corbelled dome, creating an interior chamber that is both spacious and remarkably durable. The most famous, the Treasury of Atreus, measures over 13 meters in diameter and rises to more than 14 meters in height, with massive limestone blocks forming the vaulted roof in precise, overlapping layers. How could a civilization without cranes, pulleys, or advanced machinery accomplish such a feat, perfectly distributing enormous stones to form a stable dome? Was it the product of trial, skill, and communal labor, or did the builders possess knowledge of structural mechanics that has since been lost? Entering a Tholos tomb, one is immediately struck by the careful planning evident in every detail. The long dromos, or entrance passage, guides the visitor toward the central chamber, creating a sense of journey, anticipation, and ritual. The walls are constructed of finely fitted stones, some weighing several tons, placed without mortar yet enduring thousands of years of earthquakes, erosion, and human interference. Could the design have been intended to evoke awe, power, or reverence, reinforcing the status of those interred within? And what messages, spiritual or political, were encoded in the very act of burial, in the placement of stones, and in the passageway that leads to the final chamber? The construction techniques themselves are remarkable. Each corbelled layer of the dome gradually narrows toward the apex, creating a self-supporting roof that has withstood centuries. Stones were cut and shaped with precision, their surfaces smoothed to fit tightly together. How did the Mycenaeans manipulate such massive stones with only manpower, ropes, and simple tools? And why did they choose this architectural form over more conventional post and lintel construction, which was already in use in other parts of the Greek world? The Tholos tombs hint at advanced engineering knowledge that challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric and early historic societies. But it is not only the engineering that captures the imagination. The Tholos tombs are often surrounded by cemeteries, ritual deposits, and evidence of ceremonial activity. Excavations have revealed grave goods of gold, bronze, and intricately crafted pottery, suggesting a society deeply invested in ritual, status, and perhaps cosmology. Did these objects serve as offerings to guide the dead, as symbols of power and prestige, or as components in complex spiritual beliefs? The presence of such wealth within tombs, combined with the monumental scale of construction, suggests a civilization capable of both extraordinary craftsmanship and far-reaching social organization. The symbolic aspects of the Tholos tombs also invite reflection. The circular domed form may echo cosmic or spiritual principles, representing the heavens, the eternal cycle of life and death, or the centrality of the individual within a larger universe. The alignment of some tombs with surrounding hills, valleys, or seasonal sunlight hints at intentional integration of natural and celestial elements, suggesting that these structures were more than burial chambers. They were sacred spaces, carefully situated within the landscape to convey meaning beyond the material. Despite extensive study, many questions remain. How were these tombs constructed with such precision and stability? Were there specialized artisans or architects whose knowledge was closely guarded? How did the Mycenaeans organize the massive labor required? And what social or political mechanisms allowed such monumental projects to be completed? And perhaps most intriguingly, what rituals were performed within the tombs, and what knowledge, spiritual practice, or mythological belief did they encode? The stones themselves remain silent on these questions, leaving only their presence to spark wonder and speculation. Walking through the long dromos of the treasury of Atreus or the nearby tomb of Clytemnestra, one senses the deliberate power of the design. The gradual narrowing of the passage, the soaring dome of the chamber, and the massive, precisely fitted stones all create a sense of awe, even without understanding the full context. The experience evokes questions about perception and psychology. Did the builders intend the tombs to manipulate emotion, create reverence, or guide spiritual journeys for visitors or participants? And if so, how sophisticated was this understanding of human response and ceremonial space? The Tholos tombs also speak to continuity and influence. Their design may have inspired later monumental architecture, from Greek temples to Roman domes, yet their origins remain uniquely Mycenaean, rooted in a culture whose full complexity is still only partially understood. The combination of engineering mastery, artistic intent, and ritual significance challenges us to consider the intellectual and spiritual achievements of a civilization often overshadowed by later Greek history. The surrounding landscape adds further layers to the mystery. The tombs occupy commanding positions on hillsides with views of valleys, rivers, and nearby settlements. Were these sites chosen purely for their practical visibility and defensibility, or did they hold spiritual or symbolic significance within the Mycenaean worldview? Could the positioning of tombs relative to each other, the citadel of Mycenae, or natural features reflect a deliberate cosmological or social order, now partially lost to time? The Tholos tombs endure not only as monuments to death, but as enduring questions about life, society, and the extraordinary capabilities of ancient peoples. Their massive stones, precise construction, and enduring presence suggest knowledge, skill, and intentionality that challenge modern assumptions about the Mycenaeans and their world. What motivated these monumental projects, and what secrets remain encoded within their stones? How much of the spiritual, social, and political knowledge of the Mycenaeans is preserved silently in these tombs, and how much will remain forever beyond our grasp? As the sun sets over the hills of Mycenae, casting long shadows across the domed chambers and dromoi, the Tholos tombs stand as both achievement and enigma. They invite us to wonder, to reflect, and to acknowledge that some aspects of human ingenuity, ritual, and belief may always remain partially hidden, their full significance whispering across millennia, waiting for those who approach with patience, observation, and reverence to discern their stories. From the limestone hills and monumental domes of Mycenae, our journey carries us far across the globe to the lush volcanic highlands of West Java, Indonesia. Here, amidst dense forests and terraced fields, rises Gunung Padang, a site whose very name, Mountain of Light, hints at a significance that reaches beyond the ordinary. At first glance, the site resembles a natural hill, terraced into stepped platforms that ascend in a seemingly organic pattern. Yet as one approaches, it becomes apparent that this hill conceals an extraordinary achievement of prehistoric engineering, a massive megalithic complex whose origins, scale, and purpose continue to challenge conventional understanding. Gunung Padang is often described as Indonesia's largest megalithic site. Its terraces are covered with tightly packed columns of volcanic stone, arranged in seemingly deliberate patterns that form an ascending pyramid-like structure. The terraces rise in 5 distinct levels, each supported by layers of stones, and the alignment of the stones suggests intentional planning rather than mere earthworks. Early excavations indicate that the topmost terraces may have served ceremonial purposes, possibly as sacred platforms or sites for ritual observance. Yet the sheer scale of the construction, spanning hundreds of meters and incorporating thousands of stones, raises profound questions. How was such an enormous project achieved with the tools and technologies available in prehistoric Indonesia? And what purpose demanded such immense effort? What sets Gunung Padang apart is the complexity hidden beneath its surface. Recent investigations, including geophysical surveys and core drilling, reveal that the hill is not simply a natural formation with added terraces. It appears to conceal a series of underground stone chambers and layers, extending several tens of meters below the visible terraces. Radiocarbon dating of organic material from various depths has suggested that parts of the structure may date back as far as 20,000 years, although these results remain subject to debate. Could this imply that Gunung Padang is far older than mainstream archaeology recognizes? And if so, what knowledge, social organization, and technical skill would have been necessary to conceive and construct such a subterranean and monumental complex at such an early date? The arrangement of stones is equally intriguing. Large basalt columns, often pentagonal or rectangular in shape, are set upright and interlocked, forming terraces that resist erosion and seismic activity. Some researchers suggest that the builders had an understanding of structural engineering far beyond what is generally attributed to prehistoric cultures in the region. Was the interlocking of stones a purely practical solution to stabilize the terraces, or did it carry symbolic or cosmological meaning as well? Could the orientation of the terraces relate to cardinal directions, celestial events, or geomantic principles intended to harness or honor natural forces? The sheer magnitude of labor required to quarry, transport, and position these stones also raises questions about social organization. Gunung Padang's construction would have demanded a coordinated workforce, planning, and leadership, implying a society capable of complex administration and long-term project management. Who organized this work, and for what purpose? Was it a religious elite, a ruler, or a communal effort undertaken over generations? And what cultural or spiritual imperatives justified the extraordinary time and energy devoted to building a site that dwarfs most contemporaneous structures across Southeast Asia? The site's purpose remains a subject of debate. Archaeologists generally classify Gunung Padang as a ceremonial or ritual site, yet the complexity of the terraces and underground chambers suggests it may have served multiple functions. Some have speculated that the terraces were used for astronomical observation, ritual gatherings, or even as repositories of knowledge. Could the alignment of stones and terraces encode information about seasonal cycles, celestial events, or earth energies in ways that have been lost to time? And if so, what role did these practices play in the social, spiritual, or political life of the people who built it? Walking through the terraces today, one is struck by the precision and scale of the stonework. The terraces ascend like steps toward the sky, each platform carefully leveled and reinforced, forming a structure that blends natural geology with human intention. Some stones appear to have been deliberately shaped or selected to fit within a larger pattern, as if the builders were composing a grand architectural symphony in basalt. How did they achieve such uniformity, stability, and aesthetic harmony with rudimentary tools? And why has this site endured, resisting erosion, vegetation growth, and the passage of millennia, with so much of its original form intact? Gunung Padang also invites reflection on the human desire to engage with the sacred. The terraces, chambers, and platforms create a journey of ascent, a physical and symbolic movement from the base of the hill toward its summit. Was this path intended to elevate participants spiritually, physically, or socially? Did the act of climbing the terraces serve as a ritual, a pilgrimage, or a test of devotion, linking the community with the site and with the forces of nature? The experience evokes questions about the intersection of architecture, spirituality, and human cognition in prehistoric societies. Despite modern technology, much of Gunung Padang remains hidden and enigmatic. Core samples suggest layers of construction built over millennia, yet the exact chronology, purpose, and knowledge of the builders remain elusive. Was this a site continuously developed across thousands of years, each generation adding to the work of the previous? And if so, what traditions, rituals, or knowledge were preserved and transmitted, encoded in the stones themselves for posterity? Gunung Padang, like the Tholos tombs of Mycenae before it, demonstrates that ancient societies were capable of architectural innovation, spatial awareness, and technical mastery far beyond what we often assume. Yet it also reminds us of the limits of modern interpretation. The terraces, stone columns, and underground chambers are eloquent yet silent, offering glimpses of intention and capability, but withholding the full story of the people who created them. What motivated these prehistoric builders? How did they organize, plan, and execute such a monumental task? And what remains hidden beneath the terraces, waiting to reveal the secrets of a civilization whose sophistication continues to astonish modern science? As the sun sets over the volcanic highlands of West Java, casting long shadows across the stone terraces, Gunung Padang stands as both achievement and enigma. Its terraces ascend toward the sky, its underground layers stretch into the earth, and its stones whisper of knowledge, ritual, and human ambition that defy simple explanation. What lies beneath the visible terraces? What truths, rituals, or understandings remain locked within the basalt, waiting for patient eyes and careful hands to uncover them? And most importantly, what does Gunung Padang reveal about the ingenuity, vision, and determination of humans in a distant and largely forgotten past? From the volcanic terraces of Gunung Padang, our journey carries us across continents and oceans, from the highlands of Indonesia to the rolling savannas of southern Africa. Here, amidst the rugged hills and granite outcrops of modern-day Zimbabwe, rise the enigmatic walls of Great Zimbabwe, an ancient city whose monumental stone architecture continues to intrigue historians, archaeologists, and travelers alike. At first glance, the walls appear as a labyrinth of dry stone constructions, their massive blocks assembled without mortar, curving and weaving across the landscape with a fluidity that suggests both purpose and artistry. Yet beneath this apparent simplicity lies a mystery of scale, craftsmanship, and societal complexity that defies easy explanation. Great Zimbabwe was the heart of a thriving kingdom that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries CE. It was a center of trade, culture, and governance, connecting inland African communities with the broader Indian Ocean world. The walls themselves, however, predate many written accounts and dominate the archaeological record, rising up to 11 meters high in some places, enclosing terraces, conical towers, and a series of winding passages that hint at social organization and ritual significance. How did a society without modern tools or formal engineering education manage to quarry, transport, and fit these stones with such precision? And why construct walls of such scale and intricacy, not merely for defense, but as enduring symbols of power and prestige? The construction of Great Zimbabwe is remarkable for both its technical and aesthetic achievements. The walls are built entirely of granite blocks, carefully shaped and stacked without mortar, yet they have withstood centuries of weather, erosion, and human activity. The blocks vary in size, yet they fit together with remarkable accuracy, forming continuous curving walls that enclose complex residential and ceremonial areas. Some of the walls feature tapering techniques, where the structure narrows subtly toward the top, enhancing stability and visual elegance. How did the builders achieve such structural integrity with only rudimentary tools, levers, and sheer human effort? Could there have been construction methods or techniques passed down orally, now lost to history, that enabled such feats of engineering? The site itself is expansive, divided into several major areas, including the hill complex, the great enclosure, and the valley ruins. The hill complex, perched on a rocky outcrop, likely served as a political and spiritual center, while the great enclosure, with its iconic curved walls, may have been a ceremonial space or residence for elites. Archaeologists have debated the exact functions of these areas for decades. Were they purely practical, designed to house the ruling class and store resources, or did they hold symbolic or ritual significance? The flowing lines of the walls, the strategic placement of enclosures, and the elevated positions all hint at a deep understanding of spatial organization and social hierarchy. What sets Great Zimbabwe apart is the enigmatic nature of its purpose and the sophistication of its construction. The walls form no simple geometric pattern. Rather, they curve and wind with a sense of rhythm and intent. This organic flow suggests a blend of practical planning and aesthetic vision, creating spaces that guide movement, observation, and perhaps ritual behavior. Was this design meant to impress, to signify power, or to facilitate ceremonies that remain invisible to the modern observer? And if so, what cultural or spiritual knowledge informed these choices, linking stone, landscape, and society in ways we can only begin to speculate? Artifacts discovered at Great Zimbabwe further deepen the intrigue. Beads, pottery, and trade goods from as far afield as China, Persia, and the Arabian Peninsula have been uncovered, revealing a society with far-reaching connections. Yet these finds also highlight a tension. While trade networks and material culture are partially understood, The social, political, and ritual knowledge embedded in the walls themselves remains largely opaque. What messages, beliefs, or cosmologies were encoded in the massive stone constructions? Could the curvature of walls, the placement of towers, and the pathways through the enclosures have been intended to guide perception, symbolize cosmological order, or communicate authority? From the enduring walls of Great Zimbabwe, our journey returns once more to the highlands of South America, to the Andean plateau that stretches across southern Peru. Here, near the modern city of Cusco, lies Picolacta, an ancient Wari settlement whose expansive temples and urban planning hint at a society of extraordinary sophistication. Perched on a gently sloping hill, the site stretches across hectares, its streets and structures carefully aligned, forming a grid-like pattern that evokes both order and intentionality. The first glimpse of Picolacta from the surrounding valleys suggests a city frozen in time, a vast ceremonial and administrative center whose purpose and design continue to challenge archaeologists and historians alike. Picolacta dates to approximately 600 to 1100 CE, during the height of the Wari Empire, a civilization that predates the Inca by several centuries, yet demonstrates striking complexity in its architecture, social organization, and ritual practice. The site is dominated by large rectangular compounds, courtyards, and platforms, constructed from finely cut adobe blocks arranged in massive walls. The temples themselves are imposing, with multiple terraces, stairways, and recessed niches, their design suggesting careful attention to both functionality and symbolism. How did the Wari achieve such precision with mud brick construction, ensuring stability and alignment across such a sprawling complex? And what cultural imperatives drove the creation of a city that seamlessly blends urban planning with ceremonial architecture? The layout of Picolacta is striking in its rationality and scale. Long, wide avenues intersect at right angles, connecting residential compounds with ceremonial spaces, administrative centers, and temple platforms. This grid-like arrangement indicates deliberate planning and centralized authority, yet it also raises questions. How did the Wari coordinate labor and resources to construct such a city? Was the grid purely practical, designed for efficiency and governance, or did it carry symbolic or cosmological significance? Could the alignment of streets and temples relate to celestial phenomena, seasonal cycles, or sacred geography, embedding a deeper understanding of the cosmos into the very fabric of the city? The temples themselves are perhaps the most compelling aspect of Picolacta. Constructed from adobe and reinforced with stone foundations, these structures rise in stepped terraces with carefully proportioned stairways and ceremonial platforms. Some temples feature multiple levels, suggesting complex rituals or gatherings that required spatial hierarchy and organization. Could these terraces have served as stages for public ceremonies, religious observances, or even astronomical observation? And if so, what knowledge of ritual, astronomy, or human behavior informed their design? The Wari appear to have combined technical skill with conceptual sophistication, creating spaces that were both functional and symbolic, practical and transcendent. Artifacts discovered at Picolacta offer additional insight, though they also deepen the mystery. Pottery, textiles, and ritual objects suggest a highly organized society with specialized crafts and trade networks extending across the Andean highlands. Yet the absence of written records leaves much of the city's social and religious life open to interpretation. How were rituals conducted within these temples? Were the compounds used primarily for elite administrative functions, or did they serve the broader community in ceremonial and civic roles? And what role did the physical layout of Picolacta play in shaping social interactions, hierarchy, and power dynamics? The technical aspects of construction are equally remarkable. Adobe bricks were carefully molded and sun-dried, then stacked in walls that have endured centuries of weathering and occasional seismic activity. The foundations and lower terraces, often reinforced with stone, provide both stability and durability, demonstrating an empirical understanding of structural engineering. How did the Wari develop these techniques, and how much experimentation, trial, and accumulated knowledge were required to build structures that could withstand time and the natural challenges of the highlands? Were certain sites intentionally chosen for their geological properties, creating an interplay between natural terrain and human architecture? From the enduring walls of Great Zimbabwe, our journey returns once more to the highlands of South America, to the Andean plateau that stretches across southern Peru. Here, near the modern city of Cusco, lies Picolacta, an ancient Wari settlement whose expansive temples and urban planning hint at a society of extraordinary sophistication. Perched on a gently sloping hill, the site stretches across hectares, its streets and structures carefully aligned, forming a grid-like pattern that evokes both order and intentionality. The first glimpse of Picolacta from the surrounding valleys suggests a city frozen in time, a vast ceremonial and administrative center whose purpose and design continue to challenge archaeologists and historians alike. Picolacta dates to approximately 600 to 1100 CE, during the height of the Wari Empire, a civilization that predates the Inca by several centuries, yet demonstrates striking complexity in its architecture, social organization, and ritual practice. The site is dominated by large rectangular compounds, courtyards, and platforms, constructed from finely cut adobe blocks arranged in massive walls. The temples themselves are imposing, with multiple terraces, stairways, and recessed niches, their design suggesting careful attention to both functionality and symbolism. How did the Wari achieve such precision with mud brick construction, ensuring stability and alignment across such a sprawling complex? And what cultural imperatives drove the creation of a city that seamlessly blends urban planning with ceremonial architecture? The layout of Picolacta is striking in its rationality and scale. Long, wide avenues intersect at right angles, connecting residential compounds with ceremonial spaces, administrative centers, and temple platforms. This grid-like arrangement indicates deliberate planning and centralized authority, yet it also raises questions. How did the Wari coordinate labor and resources to construct such a city? Was the grid purely practical, designed for efficiency and governance, or did it carry symbolic or cosmological significance? Could the alignment of streets and temples relate to celestial phenomena, seasonal cycles, or sacred geography, embedding a deeper understanding of the cosmos into the very fabric of the city? The temples themselves are perhaps the most compelling aspect of Picolacta. Constructed from adobe and reinforced with stone foundations, these structures rise in stepped terraces, with carefully proportioned stairways and ceremonial platforms. Some temples feature multiple levels, suggesting complex rituals or gatherings that required spatial hierarchy and organization. Could these terraces have served as stages for public ceremonies, religious observances, or even astronomical observation? And if so, what knowledge of ritual, astronomy, or human behavior informed their design? The Wari appear to have combined technical skill with conceptual sophistication, creating spaces that were both functional and symbolic, practical and transcendent. Artifacts discovered at Picolacta offer additional insight, though they also deepen the mystery. Pottery, textiles, and ritual objects suggest a highly organized society with specialized crafts and trade networks extending across the Andean highlands. Yet the absence of written records leaves much of the city's social and religious life open to interpretation. How were rituals conducted within these temples? Were the compounds used primarily for elite administrative functions, or did they serve the broader community in ceremonial and civic roles? And what role did the physical layout of Picolacta play in shaping social interactions, hierarchy, and power dynamics. The technical aspects of construction are equally remarkable. Adobe bricks were carefully molded and sun-dried, then stacked in walls that have endured centuries of weathering and occasional seismic activity. The foundations and lower terraces, often reinforced with stone, provide both stability and durability, demonstrating an empirical understanding of structural engineering. How did the Wari develop these techniques, and how much experimentation, trial, and accumulated knowledge were required to build structures that could withstand time and the natural challenges of the highlands? Were certain sites intentionally chosen for their geological properties, creating an interplay between natural terrain and human architecture? Pikalakta's ceremonial spaces further suggest an understanding of the human experience of architecture. Wide courtyards and long avenues create movement and perspective, guiding participants through sequences of arrival, gathering, and ritual performance. The temples themselves, elevated above the surrounding streets, dominate the visual field, reinforcing authority, sacredness, and the connection between the human and divine. Could the Wari have intentionally designed these spatial experiences to convey power, inspire awe, or guide spiritual engagement? And if so, what does this reveal about their knowledge of perception, psychology, and the symbolic potential of architecture? The scale of the city implies a society capable of advanced planning, administration, and social coordination. Hundreds of workers would have been required to mold, transport, and assemble adobe bricks, maintain water supply, and organize labor for ceremonial spaces. What structures of leadership, governance, or ritual authority enabled the construction and maintenance of such a complex urban environment? And how were technical, ceremonial, and artistic knowledge transmitted across generations to ensure continuity in building practice and urban organization? The relationship between Pikalakta and the surrounding landscape adds another layer of intrigue. The city occupies a hill that dominates the valley floor, providing views of distant mountains, rivers, and trade routes. Such positioning could have been practical for defense and observation, yet it also hints at symbolic significance. Did the Wari perceive their city as a microcosm, linking human activity with sacred mountains, rivers, and celestial phenomena? And if so, how much of this knowledge was encoded in the layout, orientation, and dimensions of temples, courtyards, and avenues? Walking through the ruins today, one is struck by the clarity of the city's organization and the intentionality of its architecture. Despite the erosion of time, the streets, walls, and terraces evoke a society that valued order, hierarchy, and ritual. Yet so much remains elusive. The precise nature of the ceremonies conducted within the temples, the social and political functions of the urban grid, and the symbolic meanings encoded in the very placement of stones. What stories, beliefs, and knowledge were embedded in Pikalakta's design, waiting for those with patience and insight to uncover them? Pikalakta, like Great Zimbabwe and Gunung Padang before it, demonstrates that ancient civilizations were capable of combining technical skill, social organization, and symbolic sophistication in ways that challenge modern assumptions. Its walls, terraces, and temples endure as both achievement and enigma, offering glimpses into a society that navigated the practical and spiritual realms with equal attention and care. And yet, the city remains incomplete to our understanding, its full significance obscured by the passage of time, cultural loss, and the absence of written records. As the Andean sun casts long shadows across the adobe terraces and temple platforms, Pikalakta stands as a silent witness to human ingenuity, ritual practice, and social complexity. Its streets and temples beckon us to consider the knowledge, intention, and belief systems of the Wari civilization. How were rituals performed within these sacred spaces? What principles guided the layout of streets, terraces, and ceremonial platforms? and what secrets remain buried beneath the adobe, waiting for patient observation, careful excavation, and thoughtful interpretation to reveal the full depth of this ancient city. Pekalakta invites us to reflect on the enduring mystery of human civilization, the drive to construct, organize, and ritualize space in ways that are both functional and transcendent. Its terraces and temples whisper across centuries, hinting at knowledge, belief, and social complexity that remain partially hidden, challenging us to look deeper, ask questions, and appreciate the sophistication of a society whose stones continue to shape our understanding of the past and the mysteries it still holds. From the meticulously planned streets and towering temples of Pekalakta, we turn our gaze northward, across continents and oceans, to the rolling landscapes of southern England. Here, in Wiltshire, lies Avebury Henge, a prehistoric monument that dominates the countryside with an enigmatic presence. Viewed from above, the site reveals a vast circular earthwork, enclosing hundreds of standing stones arranged in geometric patterns, whose scale and ambition rival even the most monumental constructions of the ancient world. At first glance, the stones appear scattered, yet closer inspection reveals a deliberate arrangement, a harmony of mass, space, and form that invites contemplation, reflection, and awe. Avebury Henge dates to around 2600 BCE, making it roughly contemporaneous with the construction of Stonehenge. Yet its scale surpasses many other henges. The outer ditch stretches more than 330 meters in diameter, encircling a vast ring of massive stones, some reaching heights of over 6 meters. Within this outer circle lie smaller stone circles, avenues, and alignments that suggest an intricate understanding of geometry, measurement, and landscape integration. How did a society without written records or modern engineering tools conceive of such a design? And why dedicate immense effort to moving and erecting stones of such size, some weighing more than 40 tons, without clear defensive or practical purpose? The construction techniques at Avebury remain a subject of fascination. The stones, many of local sarsen, were quarried, transported, and erected using methods that are still debated today. Ropes, levers, wooden sledges, and coordinated labor may have been employed, but the sheer scale of the project suggests a level of planning and organization that challenges conventional assumptions about Neolithic communities. How were these massive stones moved across the terrain, and what knowledge of physics and leverage did the builders possess, even if conveyed only through trial, experience, and oral tradition? Avebury's purpose, like its construction, remains elusive. Archaeologists have proposed a range of possibilities: ceremonial gathering spaces, astronomical observatories, ritual centers, or even symbolic representations of cosmological concepts. The outer circle's alignment does not correspond as neatly to solar or lunar events as other megalithic sites, suggesting that its significance may have been social, spiritual, or symbolic rather than strictly astronomical. Could the positioning of stones, ditches, and avenues encode an ancient language of power, ritual, or cosmology, accessible only to those initiated into the society's beliefs? Within the henge, the landscape itself becomes part of the monument. The earthwork rises from gently undulating fields, commanding views across the surrounding valley and connecting visually to natural features such as river bends and hills. Was the henge designed to integrate human construction with the environment, creating a dialogue between the sacred and the natural? Could the outer ditch and bank, enclosing the standing stones, have symbolized a boundary between ordinary and sacred space, a transition into a realm of ritual and reflection? And if so, what rites, observances, or ceremonies took place within this defined perimeter? Avebury also reveals traces of habitation, activity, and ritual deposits. Excavations have uncovered pottery, flint tools, and evidence of fires, suggesting that people gathered here for extended periods. Some stones bear cup marks and carvings, enigmatic signs whose meanings remain uncertain. Did these marks serve as ritual symbols, messages, or astronomical indicators? And how might the people of Avebury have experienced these spaces, moving between circles and avenues, interacting with the stones as part of a carefully choreographed ritual landscape? The concentric arrangement of stones, ditches, and avenues demonstrates an understanding of spatial relationships and geometry. The outer circle is punctuated by gaps that appear intentional, providing entrances aligned with particular axes or features of the landscape. The inner circles create chambers and focal points, suggesting deliberate organization of movement and observation. Could these arrangements have been designed to guide participants' experiences, to mark social or spiritual hierarchies, or to encode knowledge about cosmology, time, or the cycles of nature? And if so, how much of that knowledge is now lost, obscured by millennia of erosion, farming, and human activity? The size and effort required to construct Avebury also imply a society capable of complex social organization. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of individuals would have needed to coordinate labor, plan logistics, and maintain morale over years or decades of construction. What structures of leadership or ritual authority made such a monumental undertaking possible? Were there specialized artisans or ritual specialists directing the placement of stones? And if so, what knowledge did they possess that was lost to subsequent generations? Avebury's enduring presence also raises questions about intention and permanence. Unlike temporary or utilitarian structures, the stones and earthworks were built to last, to dominate the landscape for centuries, perhaps millennia. Did the builders anticipate the longevity of their work, intending it as a message to future generations, or as a conduit for spiritual energy across time? And how much of their knowledge, belief, and purpose is embedded in the very placement of stones, the dimensions of ditches, and the flow of avenues, waiting to be interpreted by those patient enough to study the site closely? As one walks along the outer bank, threading through gaps in the stone circle or ascending the terraces of the central area, the experience evokes both awe and mystery. The sheer scale, the careful arrangement, and the interplay with the surrounding landscape create a powerful sense of intentionality and significance. Yet so much remains uncertain. The exact function of each stone, the meaning of carvings, the rituals performed, and the cosmological understanding that guided construction. Could the henge have served multiple functions simultaneously, social, ceremonial, political, and spiritual, blurring the boundaries between the practical and the sacred? Avebury, like Picolacta before it, reminds us of the ingenuity, ambition, and vision of human societies long past. Its massive stones, geometric precision, and integration with the landscape demonstrate skills and knowledge that continue to challenge modern interpretation. Yet the henge also reminds us of the limits of our understanding. The people who built it left no written records, and the silence of the stones invites speculation, reflection, and wonder. What secrets lie encoded in the arrangement of stones, the depths of the ditches, and the alignments of avenues? And how much of their social, spiritual, and symbolic meaning remains just beyond our reach, whispering across millennia? As the sun dips low over the Wiltshire countryside, casting long shadows across the standing stones, Avebury Henge stands as both monument and mystery. Its circles rise and curve with silent authority, blending human ingenuity with natural landscape, and its presence continues to challenge and inspire. How did the builders conceive of such a vast and harmonious design? What rituals, ceremonies, or cosmological observations once took place here? And what remains hidden, waiting beneath the soil, obscured by centuries, yet preserving the imprint of a civilization that sought to shape the land, the sky, and human experience itself? Avebury invites us, as all great ancient sites do, to walk slowly, observe closely, and contemplate the skill, intention, and mystery of the humans who shaped the world long before us. It is a place where geometry, ritual, and imagination converge, leaving us to wonder what truths about human creativity, spirituality, and knowledge lie embedded in these stones, still waiting to be discovered. From the massive stone circles of Avebury, where human ingenuity and ritual imagination shape the landscape, we turn our gaze southward to the rugged hills and sun-drenched valleys of Sardinia. Here, scattered across the island, rise the enigmatic giants' tombs, megalithic burial sites whose long, stone-built structures reach toward the sky like silent sentinels of an ancient world. At first glance, these tombs appear as simple rows of stones embedded in the earth, yet closer inspection reveals a deliberate and sophisticated architectural design, blending function, symbolism, and monumental scale. Walking among them, one cannot escape the sense that these were more than burial places. They were statements, carefully constructed to endure, to mark territory, and to connect the living with the dead, the temporal with the eternal. The giants' tombs, known locally as Tombe dei Giganti, date from the Bronze Age, roughly between 1800 and 1200 BCE. They are so named not for their occupants, but for the massive size of the structures, which dwarf ordinary human proportions and inspire awe in those who approach. Each tomb typically consists of a central corridor or chamber, flanked by large vertical stones forming walls and capped by massive horizontal slabs that create a roof. In front of the chamber, many tombs feature a semicircular forecourt, often bordered by stones arranged in a crescent, giving the impression of a grand entrance that frames both the living and the dead. How did communities of this period conceive such monumental designs? What knowledge of structural balance, material strength, and ceremonial space guided their construction? The construction of these tombs is remarkable. Each stone, often weighing several tons, was quarried, shaped, and transported over distances that would challenge even modern builders. Many of the stones used are vertically aligned, with horizontal slabs carefully placed atop them to form a sturdy and enduring roof. This dry stone technique, requiring no mortar, allowed the tombs to endure for millennia, surviving earthquakes, erosion, and the passage of time. How did Bronze Age Sardinians achieve such precision with primitive tools? Were there specialized knowledge, techniques, or rituals that guided the placement of each stone, ensuring stability and symmetry without formal engineering? The tombs themselves vary in size and complexity. Some feature a single long chamber, while others are divided into multiple compartments, suggesting different burial practices, perhaps for families, clans, or social hierarchies. The largest of these structures, such as Codevecchio in Arzachena, stretches over 30 meters in length, an impressive scale that prompts questions about labor organization and societal coordination. How many people would have been required to quarry, transport, and erect these stones? How was such a monumental project financed, organized, and sustained over the years necessary for completion? And what cultural, spiritual, or symbolic imperatives justified the enormous expenditure of time, energy, and resources? Archaeological investigations have revealed that these tombs were used for collective burials, often accommodating hundreds of individuals over successive generations. Skeletal remains, along with pottery, tools, and ritual objects, indicate complex social and spiritual practices. Some researchers propose that the tombs served not only as resting places for the dead, but as focal points for ritual activity, ceremonies of remembrance, or seasonal gatherings. Could the very shape of the tombs, the long chamber, the imposing vertical stones, the crescent-shaped forecourt, have been designed to create a specific experience for participants, to evoke reverence, fear, or connection with the ancestors? The symbolism inherent in the giants' tombs is compelling. The long, narrow chambers suggest a passage, a journey from the world of the living to that of the dead. The semicircular forecourts may represent the womb, the horizon, or a boundary between realms. The massive scale of the stones and their deliberate arrangement communicates power, permanence, and a sense of the sacred. Were these structures intended to mark communal identity, to assert control over territory, or to connect human society with celestial or natural forces? And if so, how much of that knowledge has been lost, leaving only the silent stones as witnesses to beliefs we can only speculate about? The placement of the tombs within the Sardinian landscape also suggests careful consideration of topography and visibility. Many are situated on elevated hillsides, commanding views of surrounding valleys, rivers, and agricultural lands. This positioning would have enhanced their symbolic significance, linking the tombs to both the land and the sky. Were the tombs aligned with celestial events such as solstices or equinoxes, marking the passage of time and the cycles of nature? Could their orientation have reflected a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, cosmology, or ritual timing that guided Bronze Age communities in their spiritual and agricultural practices? The persistence of the giants' tombs through time is a testament to both craftsmanship and vision. The builders understood not only the physical properties of massive stones, but also the cultural and spiritual power of scale. By creating tombs that tower over ordinary human proportions, they communicated authority, permanence, and a link between the temporal and eternal. Yet so much remains unknown. The precise rituals performed, the social or political structures that enabled their construction, and the symbolic meanings encoded in the shape, orientation, and arrangement of stones. Some tombs include carved or decorated stones, with motifs such as spirals, zigzags, or abstract symbols. These carvings hint at ritual significance, perhaps recording cosmological knowledge, mythological narratives, or spiritual codes now lost to time. Could these symbols have guided initiates through ceremonies, told stories of ancestry, or represented celestial phenomena? And if so, what aspects of Bronze Age knowledge and belief are preserved in the silent stone, waiting to be interpreted? Walking among these tombs today, one is struck by the interplay of scale, form, and landscape. The long chambers seem to stretch infinitely. The vertical stones evoke the presence of ancestral figures, and the crescent-shaped forecourts frame the horizon in ways that invite reflection. Even without knowing the original rituals or intentions, it is impossible to ignore the deliberate, contemplative experience crafted by the builders. How did these ancient communities conceptualize time, death, and the sacred? How did they translate these abstract concepts into stone, earth, and space in ways that still resonate today? The giants' tombs, like Avebury before them, remind us of the extraordinary capabilities of ancient societies, their skill in engineering, their understanding of space and proportion, and their ability to convey meaning through monumental construction. Yet they also highlight the limits of our understanding. Each tomb is a fragment of a lost worldview, a silent testimony to social cohesion, spiritual belief, and technical mastery. How much of that knowledge has been preserved in stone, and how much has vanished, leaving only questions and the haunting presence of these enduring monuments? As the Sardinian sun casts long shadows across the forecourts and chamber stones, the giants' tombs stand as both monument and mystery. Their imposing stones, long chambers, and carefully arranged terraces challenge our understanding of Bronze Age society, inviting reflection on human ingenuity, ritual practice, and the desire to leave a lasting mark on the world. What secrets lie within their chambers? What rituals, beliefs, and knowledge are encoded in their arrangement, scale, and placement? And how much will remain forever beyond our reach, whispering across millennia, waiting for those who approach with patience, observation, and reverence to discern their stories. The giants' tombs, like all the sites we have explored, compel us to recognize the depth, skill, and imagination of ancient civilizations. They stand as silent witnesses to human ambition, belief, and creativity, reminding us that even across thousands of years, stone can speak, and that some mysteries endure, inviting us to wonder, explore, and reflect on the remarkable legacy of the past. From the sun-baked hills of Sardinia and the solemn chambers of the giants' tombs, our journey carries us across the Mediterranean to the island of Gozo, part of the Maltese archipelago. Here, on a gently sloping plateau, rise the Ggantija Temples, among the oldest freestanding structures in the world. Their massive stones, some weighing more than 50 tons, jut from the earth in imposing formations, creating spaces that are simultaneously awe-inspiring and enigmatic. Even from a distance, the silhouette of the temples suggests deliberate design, their contours echoing both human and cosmic forms, a monumental expression of a civilization long vanished yet still palpable through stone. The Ggantija Temples date to approximately 3,600 to 3,200 BCE, belonging to the Neolithic period and predating Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids. Their construction indicates a highly organized society capable of coordinating labor, resources, and specialized knowledge without the benefit of metal tools or written language. The temples are composed of two main structures, each enclosed by a massive curving outer wall and featuring apsidal chambers that converge on a central corridor. The largest of the temples reaches an impressive 27 meters in length, its walls standing nearly 6 meters high. How did Neolithic builders conceptualize and execute such monumental designs? And what social, spiritual, or symbolic imperatives compelled them to move such colossal stones across the island's terrain? The very stones of Ggantija provoke questions. The builders quarried megaliths from local limestone outcrops, shaping and transporting them using methods that remain largely speculative. Some theories suggest the use of wooden rollers, sledges, and coordinated manpower, but the sheer scale and precision hint at techniques or knowledge that may have been lost to time. How did these communities calculate weight, leverage, and placement to ensure stability? Was there an empirical understanding of structural forces, passed down orally across generations, that allowed these enormous blocks to be arranged with enduring precision? The internal layout of the temples suggests a highly intentional design. A series of apses radiates from a central corridor, forming chambered spaces that may have served ritualistic, ceremonial, or communal functions. Some apses are filled with carefully arranged altars or platforms, suggesting that offerings, ceremonies, or rites were conducted here. Could these chambers have been designed to manipulate light, sound, or movement within the temple, guiding the sensory and emotional experience of participants? How did the interplay of space and ritual reinforce social cohesion, spiritual authority, or cosmological understanding? Artifacts found within the temples, including pottery, stone implements, and figurines, suggest a society deeply engaged in ritual and symbolic practice. The presence of fertility symbols, stylized carvings, and objects associated with agricultural cycles points to a worldview in which human, natural, and divine forces were intimately connected. Could the Ggantija temples have served as both a spiritual hub and a calendar, marking seasonal transitions and guiding communal activity? And if so, how sophisticated was this knowledge of celestial and terrestrial cycles, encoded in stone long before formal astronomy or written records? The scale and orientation of the temples hint at an awareness of their surrounding landscape. Positioned on a plateau overlooking valleys and coastal plains, the temples command views of distant horizons, creating a dialogue between human construction and natural features. Some researchers propose alignments with solstitial sunrise and sunset points, suggesting that the builders may have integrated cosmological observation into the design. Could the temples have functioned as both ceremonial centers and observatories, where stone, light, and horizon converged to mark the rhythms of time and life itself? The very name, Ggantija, evokes the sense of awe and mystery surrounding the site, derived from the Maltese word for giant. Local legend attributes the construction to giants, as the enormity of the stones seemed beyond the capability of ordinary humans. While such tales belong to folklore, they underscore a fundamental truth. The scale, precision, and endurance of the temples continue to challenge our understanding of Neolithic societies. Did these builders leave a coded message within the structure, a narrative of power, spirituality, or cosmology preserved in stone for posterity? And what knowledge, skill, or ritual experience has been lost to the millennia, leaving only speculation and silent testimony? The construction of Ggantija would have required not only technical skill but sophisticated social organization, coordinating labor to transport and erect enormous stones, while maintaining the social, political, and ritual structures necessary to support such monumental work, implies a complex society with leadership, planning, and shared purpose. Were there specialized builders, spiritual leaders, or architects guiding construction? And how did these roles emerge and evolve in a society without written records, relying instead on oral knowledge and communal experience? Equally intriguing is the integration of the human body and perception into the design. The apses, corridors, and platforms suggest spaces intentionally scaled to human movement, sightlines, and ceremony. The careful alignment of entrances, walls, and interior spaces may have created a choreography of interaction, where participants were guided, observed, or transformed by the architecture itself. Could these subtle manipulations of space reflect an understanding of human psychology, ceremonial practice, or sacred geometry that we are only beginning to appreciate? The temples also resonate with a sense of continuity and ritual memory. Built over generations, they likely served as central places for repeated ceremonies, seasonal gatherings, and rites of passage. Their enduring presence allowed knowledge, belief, and tradition to persist across centuries, anchoring communal identity in stone. Yet their precise function remains uncertain. Were they primarily sites of religious devotion, centers of political authority, or markers of territorial and social identity? Perhaps, like many ancient sites, they were all of these simultaneously, a fusion of practical, spiritual, and symbolic imperatives. Walking among the massive stones of Ggantija today, one feels both the weight of history and the enigma of human intention. Each monolith, carefully placed and enduring, carries traces of labor, belief, and knowledge that transcend time. The surrounding landscape, the orientation of the apses, the arrangement of corridors, and the presence of ritual artifacts all hint at a civilization whose understanding of space, material, and spirituality was remarkably sophisticated. And yet, the full story of the Ggantija builders remains just out of reach, a tantalizing mystery whispered by stone and earth. Ggantija, like the giants' tombs and Avebury Henge. Before it, exemplifies the extraordinary capabilities of early human societies, their ingenuity in construction, their social organization, and their vision for creating spaces that endure both physically and symbolically. And yet the site also reminds us of our limitations in fully comprehending the past. How did these ancient builders conceive of such monumental works? What knowledge, ritual, or cosmological understanding guided their hands and hearts? And what truths remain hidden, encoded in stone, waiting for patient observation, careful interpretation, and deep reflection to reveal themselves? As the Mediterranean sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the immense stones of Ggantija, the temples stand in silent testament to human ambition, creativity, and mystery. Their monolithic presence invites contemplation, urging us to consider the skills, beliefs, and knowledge of societies whose voices have been muted by time. What secrets remain locked within these ancient stones? How did they shape human experience, ritual, and cosmology in ways that resonate even today? And what mysteries will continue to elude us, whispering across millennia, waiting for those who approach with curiosity, patience, and reverence to discern their stories? From the monumental stones of Ggantija, whose sheer size and precision testify to the vision of Neolithic builders, we now journey across continents and oceans to the rugged landscapes of South America. Nestled within the rolling plains and semi-arid valleys of Peru rises a geological feature that has captured both the imagination and curiosity of explorers, geologists, and locals alike. El Cono, the pyramid-shaped mountain. Rising sharply from the surrounding terrain, this solitary peak displays remarkably regular, angular slopes, culminating in a pointed summit that seems almost too precise to be entirely natural. Viewed from afar, it evokes the iconic pyramids of human construction. Yet it is a formation of stone, wind, and time, standing as a silent enigma in a landscape already rich with ancient civilizations and monumental mysteries. El Cono commands attention immediately. Its base stretches broadly across the plains, giving it an imposing presence, while its flanks rise in strikingly straight lines, almost as if sculpted to mirror the proportions of the pyramids built by ancient cultures nearby. From certain angles, the symmetry appears deliberate, almost geometric, suggesting the hand of design. Yet scientific investigation reveals it to be a natural mountain, formed through tectonic activity, erosion, and volcanic processes. And here lies the fascination. How can nature produce such a precise, pyramid-like form, so evocative of human architectural achievement, in a landscape already imbued with the achievements of the Inca, the Chavín, and countless other civilizations? Geologists explain El Cono as the result of millions of years of uplift and erosion. The mountain's sharp angles are attributed to tectonic forces pushing sedimentary rock layers upward, while wind and water have carved its slopes with remarkable consistency. But even accepting these processes, one cannot ignore the uncanny resemblance to constructed pyramids. Its silhouette evokes questions that have long lingered in the minds of researchers, travelers, and local communities alike. Is this merely coincidence, a quirk of natural forces aligned perfectly with human perception, or could it have held meaning for ancient peoples who saw it rise above the horizon? Did they regard it as a sacred site, a natural monument imbued with spiritual significance, or even as a marker in a landscape of ritual and observation? El Cono's prominence in the landscape makes it a natural focal point. From the base of the mountain, the slopes ascend steeply, creating a visual axis that draws the eye upward. Its summit, visible for miles around, may have functioned as a landmark for ancient travelers, guiding movement across valleys, rivers, and plains. Could the mountain have served as a point of orientation for early societies navigating these terrains? A natural counterpart to man-made structures such as the pyramids at Caral or the ceremonial centers of Chavín de Huántar? And if so, how did its form influence human interaction with the land, shaping pathways, settlements, or ritual spaces in subtle, now invisible ways? The mountain's striking shape also evokes speculation about human perception and symbolism. Across cultures, pyramids and conical forms have held deep cosmological significance, representing mountains, the axis of the world, or points of contact between earth and sky. Could ancient societies in this region have interpreted El Cono's natural form in similar ways? Might it have inspired ceremonial practices, mythology, or cosmological symbolism, becoming a natural pyramid that mirrored sacred architecture? If so, what rituals or ceremonies might have unfolded along its slopes? And how did the presence of such a striking natural monument influence local belief systems? The geology of El Cono is equally intriguing. Composed predominantly of sedimentary rock, the mountain exhibits striations and layering that enhance the visual impression of man-made design. Its sides are sharply inclined, and erosion has carved channels and ridges that reinforce the perception of symmetry. While scientists attribute these features to natural forces, the regularity is uncanny. Could this be an example of geomorphological processes converging with human imagination, producing a form that simultaneously exists in the natural and symbolic realms? How often does nature, through the slow hand of time, mimic the deliberate patterns of human design? And if perception plays a role, how might ancient observers have interpreted these features differently from modern eyes? The surrounding environment adds to the mystery. El Cono rises from a valley that contains remnants of ancient habitation, terraced agriculture, and ceremonial sites. The proximity to these areas raises the question, did ancient peoples incorporate the mountain into their cultural landscape? Did they align settlements, pathways, or ritual spaces with the peak, using its form as a natural compass or marker for seasonal cycles? And if this were the case, what might have been lost to history, leaving only the mountain itself as a silent witness to human interaction with the land? Modern exploration has focused not only on geological study, but also on the mountain's potential spiritual and symbolic dimensions. Pilgrimages, myths, and local lore suggest that El Cono has long been a site of fascination and reverence. Some claim that unusual acoustics occur along its slopes, where wind and terrain create echoes or harmonic resonance. Others note subtle alignments with sunrise or sunset during solstices, though these observations remain speculative. Could these phenomena have been recognized and harnessed by ancient communities? Were these natural features integrated into ceremonial or observational practices, blurring the line between landscape, architecture, and ritual? The enigmatic nature of El Cono is heightened by its isolation. Unlike other mountains in the region which rise more irregularly or are part of continuous ranges, this formation stands distinctly separate, its shape immediately recognizable. Isolation, prominence, and symmetry combine to produce a visual and psychological impact that is difficult to ignore. Did ancient peoples regard El Cono as a sacred site precisely because of its singularity? And if so, how might they have encoded their knowledge, ritual practices, or spiritual understanding in the surrounding landscape, creating a network of sacred and functional sites connected by sightlines, pathways, and observation? Even today, El Cono continues to challenge interpretation. Satellite imagery, aerial surveys, and geological studies provide data on its composition, slope angles, and formation processes. Yet none of this fully explains the profound sense of purpose and significance it evokes. As with other enigmatic sites we have explored, from Pikalakta's terraces to Avabury's stone circles, the mountain's power lies not only in its physical form, but in the questions it provokes. What can we learn about the relationship between natural formations and human perception, between landscape and ritual, between geology and myth? And how did ancient societies experience this place, seeing in it meaning, symbolism, and perhaps even divinity that modern eyes can scarcely perceive? The interplay between El Cono's form and human imagination highlights a recurring theme in the study of ancient sites, the convergence of natural and human-made grandeur. Across the world, societies have been inspired by natural monuments to create architectural marvels, to encode cosmology in stone, and to ritualize space in ways that transcend the ordinary. Could El Cono have functioned as a natural model, guiding construction, ceremony, or spatial organization in ways we do not yet fully understand? How often does nature prefigure human design, And how do we interpret these echoes of intelligence and intention across time? Walking around the base of El Cono today, the mountain's monumental form evokes awe and contemplation. Its slopes rise sharply, its symmetry is striking, and its presence dominates the horizon. The wind carries faint whispers of centuries past, and one cannot help but wonder what the first observers, ancient farmers, travelers, or ritual specialists, must have felt as they approached this natural pyramid. How did they interpret its form, integrate it into their worldview, and experience the powerful symbolism of its angular silhouette? And perhaps most tantalizingly, what remains unseen or undiscovered beneath its slopes, in its surrounding valleys, or in the consciousness of the people who once regarded it as sacred? El Cono, like Ggantija, the giant's tombs, and Avebury Henge before it, reminds us of the complex interplay between nature, human perception, and the creation of meaning. Its pyramid-like silhouette, striking presence, and enduring mystery invite reflection on the ways humans engage with the landscape, interpret the cosmos, and seek connection with forces beyond ordinary experience. And yet the mountain resists simple explanation, leaving questions open. How precisely did natural processes sculpt such a remarkably geometric form? What symbolic or practical significance did it hold for ancient communities? And what truths lie hidden, waiting for patient observation, careful study, and imaginative insight to reveal themselves across the centuries? As the sun sets over the Peruvian plains, casting elongated shadows across the slopes of El Cono, the mountain stands in silent testimony, part geological wonder, part cultural touchstone, part enduring enigma. Its sharp angles, commanding presence, and solitary stance call us to wonder, to explore, and to reflect on the relationship between natural formation and human interpretation. What stories, rituals, and knowledge did ancient observers encode in their experience of this peak? And what mysteries remain, whispered across millennia, waiting for those who approach with curiosity, patience, and reverence to discern their secrets?